Welcome back, everybody. It's Creative Redundancy back again. The one known as C.R.N. And I'm bringing the R's into this stream because we're going to talk about the 5 R's and much more. And what is the way forward for our home? Now, a lot of this stuff is going to piggyback on my P.R.E.P streams at times, among some other things that I've done. And piggyback on some of these other things I've done on the channel. But I've decided to make a dedicated stream for this. Because it does matter. It does matter. Because this is our home, metaphorically speaking. So hopefully everyone's doing well. While I wait for some people to jump in here, I delayed this stream for about an hour, and I've started it actually technically slightly early. So hopefully everyone's doing well, like I said, you people out there. Just checking on something. I just have to make sure. Well, actually, I'll just leave that off. So hopefully everyone's doing well, like I said. We're not, like I said, this is gonna be a bunch of R's in this. Maybe not so much the CRs, but there'll be quite a bit of R chat in this. I haven't done one of these in a while, actually. So hopefully everyone's doing well, like I said. Wait. Here, let's see. Bring my chat window back up. So yes, what is this chat slash replay slash stream about? Well, it's about the 5 R's. And going beyond that and understanding it and the reasoning for it. And why to do more of them whenever possible. Because it'll piggyback, like I said, on my P.R.E.P stream about the resources. And focus in on this part of it a little bit more. You finally got me live, hey? I know. Speak of some R's, we got Rim's family in the house. What's up, man? How's it going, man? Virtual fist bump to you. Hopefully you're doing well. Yeah, this is to piggyback on my P.R.E.P stream here. I mean, there will be some indirect things that I relate back into that type of stream, but generally this is about the R's in this stream as much as possible. Yeah, safe travels out there. So there's lots to be said, especially more and more lately. Especially nowadays, even more and more. I'm gonna talk about a lot of things. A lot of R words in here. And yes, I do have the recycling logo on the screen right now. But that is just merely just one part of it. Merely just one part of it. There's our R's. Right? You know, you may... You know, and I'm doing this stream to increase the awareness of it and the impact of it. Because it does matter. And I get, you know, and remember what I do on the channel, to keep that in mind. The things that I do on this channel. The things I reuse on this channel. You know, that's another arm right there. The things I recover on the channel. At times. That's another arm right there. And I'm no different from other people out there, right? I still gotta get things done. Survive, as they say, right? So I understand, you know, the things out there, you know, because we're part of society and stuff like that. You know, people still gotta eat. People still gotta drink something. People still gotta get around. I get that. I get that. People still gotta do work, get jobs done, go to a work site, move things around, go to places, for either work purposes or for business or for pleasure. I get that. I get that. I get that. So, because I'll be asking a few questions along the way, among some other things that I'm doing in the background while I'm actually doing this at the same time. Yes. I'm not gonna be a hypocrite. I'm actually gonna be like recovering something right here. Because I'm recovering the sunflower husk that I've had on my previous live stream. I'm actually doing this right now, by the way. Because one of the things I'm gonna do in this, while I'm doing this stream, is actually recover them. And basically chop and drop it back. You can call it rot if you want as an R word. But I'm gonna do this as much as I can. I mean, how things have changed since I was young. Maybe I'll bring in a couple of stories from the past for me. Because there's something I tried to set up when I was very, very young. Back when I was like in primary school, I tried to set something up. It didn't pan out the way it was supposed to at that time. I was talking to a teacher about it. Right. It's because I was switching out of school, into middle school and stuff like that. And it was like April or May at that time. Something along. It could have been March, but didn't pan out quite the way I wanted to at that time, right? And of course, things like life happens, right? And stuff like that. Hi, Verna. I see you. I'm trying not to go on a rant here. Yeah, I know it's got an R in it. But, here's a primary example here. I know, and I'm bringing in the food chat. Right? I know, Ram, you mentioned it on your previous live stream, which was like literally yesterday, Friday. Yeah, because today's Saturday. And I've mentioned this before on our live stream, but not only my own, but on the side chat, is I really hate wasting food. Alright? For a lot of reasons. It's just not because it's food. It's just all, the calories that are involved, all the manufacturing and production of it, of said food, whatever it is. I just dislike that. As much as, I try to minimize that, reduce that as much as possible. Yeah, see, I'm throwing in these R words in here, indirectly. Because, especially considering what's going on at times. There's videos out there. I'm probably going to dive into them. I know I am. I've seen the videos out there. All this stuff. I mentioned this before on another live stream. Hi, Vanessa. I see you in there, too. Yeah, just before I jump into that, yeah, Verna, yeah, I see. You freeze dry stuff, for your leftovers. Yeah, that's one thing, right? Or being able to utilize that kind of resource a little bit better. The best that you can. I made a soup with some leftover chicken. I threw in some fresh greens in there. And the next thing you know, I got the next day kind of meal. And utilizing those resources. I guess that's a form of reusing, technically. Instead of just letting it rot. And, it'll be like, you can compost, chop and drop, whatever, right? But it's probably better to reuse the food and actually consume it instead of just letting it go to waste or rot in a compost bin or a chop and drop, which is probably better than landfill, because that stinks. Yeah, I know, I just said that. I threw in that just for you guys. A little diffusion of humor in there. Hello, humor in there. Hello, Penny. I see you in there. I know Sunflowers is in here too. Make sure I didn't miss anyone in here. Oh, definitely don't bring that screen up. yeah, me too, Remy. I mean, you do what you can, all right. I know you. You're doing some canning, right? You know, that helps. So when you're doing something like gardening or something, for example, you don't want to waste that food. Look at all the water, the fertilizer, or chop and drop or whatever that you tossed in there all the time too, right? You want to be able to conserve, reduce any wastage of food or what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, you want to reduce as much the food waste as possible. So basically, so it doesn't spoil. All right, spoiled food doesn't help anyone. Yeah, you can chop and drop it after, but things like chopping and dropping, for example, should be a last resort. Hell, even recycling should be a last resort at times. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Yeah, you try not to waste any food, but it can be difficult at times. It does spoil eventually. Yes, I get that. There is a certain right, and this is another reason to kind of consume food by priority. I know, and taking a look at that. I try to do that as much as possible. I'll be like looking at food. I'll be like, you know what? This might go in a couple of days. I should consume it instead of getting something else or consuming food that I just got yesterday. I should be consuming food that I got 6 weeks ago, 6 months ago, half a year ago, a year ago, right? That first in, first out kind of thing, FIFO kind of thing in the preparedness community recommends as much as possible. Because it does matter. It does matter, especially on the food part, alright? Consider on how all that stuff that went into said food. For example, I'm trying to relate this as food to you guys, but this could be anything, really. It could be that new tech that you have. New phone. Even the freeze-dried stuff. Well, I mean the freeze-dryer, a dehydrator, your camera stand, your phone, your cable, all this stuff, right? Always remember that there's always a manufacturing or production side of things, right? And I just focus on that in the lifespan of it, right? Because because it doesn't matter what the resource is. It could be metal, plastic, cardboard, paper, and stuff like that. All of that stuff has a production side or a manufacturing side of things. And I just focus on that end life or after it's been consumed or used. Because there's trade-offs for all of them. There's pros and cons for it, all of them. For example, I got paper straws in front of me. Right now, actually I do. I have one right in front of me, right? The paper, well, that had to come from some sort of plant material. That had to be grown. That had to be watered or use some water to grow it. Keep that in mind. Yeah, it'll quote-unquote break down or quote-unquote you can compost it, right? But you gotta remember all the trees that went involved into that, or tree. Because they don't just make one straw, or paper straw. They're making, that manufacturing or production, they're making thousands of them. Because it has to be cost effective. For example. So this whole thing about plastic straws or whatever, right? I mean, you're gonna remember, the plastic straws, the end of life thing, okay. But we gotta remember that the paper straws too, right? The trees that went involved into that. Let alone about people that actually have to use this stuff for whatever the reason is, you know. And if you can, refuse to use one because you don't need to use one because you can just drink out of the cup or bottle or glass bottle or whatever. You can always freeze your leftovers mostly if you want them, if you have a microwave. I won't own a microwave, so I put them in the oven to heat up. I see. You know, I was I was actually using an oven yesterday. Wow, something along the lines of that, and I kind of piggybacked on that heat to kind of because I was already using the resource or that equipment. I was just like, so I did something to dry something else out at the same time and get a little bit more out of the resource and what I'm doing with it. So multifunctional in that aspect of things where I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna do this at the same time, for example, and kind of get like, you know, a 2-for-1 thing in there as much as I can. Because I was just like, yeah, you know what? Why not? Because the heat's just off the metal or whatever is just sliding into the room anyway, so I might as well use it for something. You know, maybe you're cooking something. Here's an example right here, just to consider. I haven't quite done it all the way, but considering on like things like, you know, on top of a fridge or something like that might be giving off heat, excess heat, right? Instead of letting it go to waste, you're reusing that heat. That's just basically just warming up the air in your home or whatever, right? Maybe you're putting something on the top, like some microgreens or something like that to germinate, right? Maybe you don't have a heat mat. Think about it like that, right? So instead of running your heat mat unnecessarily, you're just using something that's already existing already, right? So that is a form of reusing. If you really think about it, that is a form of reusing, technically, because you're actually reusing that excess heat and kind of cycling it back into something else again. In this case, germinating plants or starting microgreens, for example. Even yesterday, I'm still working on these microgreens, but that's what I did yesterday. I was just like, I'll just kind of use up that kind of thing that it's already out there anyways. It's already kind of existing, so I'm like, oh, I'll just kind of utilize that and get more out of the resource as much as I can. What's up, SD? How's it going, Scott? I appreciate you dropping by. I mean, even for me now, like let's just say, you know, tying this in to something else here, I can relate in to some of you out there. One of the things I start to do now is anytime I'm going out camping, anytime I'm having an outdoor fire, right? Yes, blah blah blah. I know what you're gonna say about that part, but if it's already gonna be done in already because you're cooking or whenever you're around a fireplace or whatever from a heat source like that, I always bring my char tin because I figure, you know what, I'm already doing this anyways. For example, right? Enjoying campfire for the spiritual aspect or cooking or whatever, right? Heat up water, whatever, right? Keep warm and stuff like that. I'm like, I might as well. I will almost always, bring my char tin so I can make char cloth at the same time so I can utilize that resource while it's there. Because I'm not a big fan of actually starting a fire just for the sake of making char cloth. You know, I want to do this when it's already, that pre-existing fire is already there because of whatever the reason is, if that makes any sense. Because it's already there. I'm already you know, it's almost like a way of reusing or using the resource because I'm already consuming it. So I figured I'd get a little bit more out of something like some campfire, for example. I do that all the time now. I mean, I didn't do it on my last camp out because there was a fire ban, but on previous camp outs I've done, it's just like, and people know, it's just like, they're like, oh, what's this? CR. I'm like, oh, I'm just utilizing our campfire while we have it, right? Because I'm already burning something. In that case, right? I'm figuring I might as well do more with it. As much as I can. You know? If it was in the middle of the winter time or colder out, or cooler out, right? I'd be like heating up some water. So not just using the fire to directly stay warm with. I'll heat up some water, put it in, and make a hot water heater, and use that. And indirectly use fire to keep warm with. And get more out of that resource as much as I can. Hi, Iron Fire Horse. I see you in there. Appreciate that, Penny. And welcome. I know you're newer to the channel. Although I've seen you around in many different places. Alright? And that's what I do. It's just like... And I make sure that I'm like, yeah. Like, even on my last kind of... Well, not last, but one of the last times I'd shown using my chart tin. Alright? That was a pre-existing fire. Because my friend was having one. A get-together. Right? I made sure I brought my chart tin. I took advantage of that time. Just so... And get more out of it, alright? And just kind of that next fire mentality, or whatever I would use the char material for it later on. I mean, I still have some of it, right? Just so, because it's already there, the coal, even if I just put on the coals at the end, I'm reusing that residual heat for something. So it's not just kind of drifting off, right, into the sky or into the air, and not helping me, for example, or helping someone else, for example. You know what I mean? Like, I'm always looking like, it's one thing to show it. I've seen videos where people are making char cloth with, like, some propane heater or whatever. I mean, it's one thing to do it for a video, but I wouldn't want to constantly do that, though. Because it just seems like a waste to use that propane just to make char cloth. I mean, I get it if you're doing it for a video, one-time deal, okay, to illustrate the point, right? But generally, if I'm gonna make char cloth, or char material, char punk wood, whatever, I will do it from a pre-existing fire. I mean, I've shown making char cloth with solar. Because technically, char material. Making char cloth, you only need a heat source that's high enough to cause it to do all that stuff. And yes, I've done it with solar before. And indirectly use solar energy, solar thermal energy, to create fire. Indirectly, right? So indirectly using solar in that way. That's an example right there. I mean, even right now, I'm reusing some stuff. I've shown on the channel plenty of times me reusing a lot of common everyday items. Get some secondary uses out of them as much as possible. Or some people out there, at times, consider it trash, garbage, rubbish, whatever you want to call that, depending where you are in the world. Because I know those three words kind of mean the same, but it depends where you are in the world. Alright? Regardless if you're out in Europe, here in North America, or whatever, on the Asian continent, or down in South America, alright? Because the thing is, the trash thing is a real thing. Like, look, I think it wasn't last year. Look what happened last year. I mean, yeah, I know it probably exists in New York City too, but look at what happened in Paris last year. I think it was last year. There was some strike or whatever, right, and stuff like that, so garbage wasn't picked up. Look what happened to that area. People were trying to, edit, quote-unquote, Photoshop garbage out of their pictures. Because they're there for a wedding and, it's just littering in the landscape because there wasn't pickup. The smell, think about that, right? It was a real concern, right? And you think about that could exist in any major urban area within time, The only reason we don't notice something like that is because it gets picked up. Right? So no one notices that. But when that service stops or some sort of strike or anything like that, you're definitely gonna notice that. You know? If it's not the smell, it's the sight, right? That unsightly that sight that you don't wanna see, that people don't wanna see, right? And stuff like that. Like I've seen the pictures out there. I was just like looking at like, ooh, ooh, because it kind of ruins the landscape. Just like the garbage ruins the landscape at times too, where it's just like, there's this nice area usually, but it's just like littered with like trash and garbage and crap everywhere, and it's just like, yeah, and I get it, the wind, the water can carry it, but sometimes it's from someone just dropping it, for example, right? Because for anyone that goes any camping or bushcrafting or anything like that, there's this kind of unwritten rule, right? Leave the place better than when you first arrived, or leave no trace, right? Something to keep in mind, so our people can enjoy the area too, and not be like, come in to walk around the corner and be like, what the hell is this? It's so clean around one corner, then you just turn around and just like all this, metaphorically speaking, trash on the trail, right? What's up, KB? I see you in there. Well, you know what? I know the Iron Fire Horse that kind of like one person's trash is another person's treasure or whatever, right? You know, people that do these curb finds and stuff like that. I've shown things too. This is why I do on the channel. Why I've started the resource haul type of videos. Right? For example, there are haul type of videos out there. There's fashion hauls, food hauls, and prepping hauls or something like that. Well, for me on this channel, I have the resource haul. Which I still have to record the next version of it. Right? Which, in a nutshell, it's basically for things that I get for free or find for free. And a lot of the times, it's just things off the landscape that kind of got abandoned. I mean, for example, from air campers, for example. I mean, let me just read the chat real quick here. Make sure I didn't miss anything. I saw that. Yeah, I see that. Iron Fire Horse. Let's see. Yeah, I get that, Iron Fire Horse. I had that issue before, too. Don't get me wrong, about the wind and something like that, But at least you tried. I tried to. I've had that issue before, too. I was just like, damn it. Alright? I didn't want to. Alright? And don't feel bad, alright? Like I said, we all create some sort of trash or waste eventually. Within time. I'm not just saying for us within, but like, just because we have gear, resources like that, right? Man-made items and consumables, right? I get that. I understand that. I'm not the demonize people just because they make a little bit of trash or because their tarp will weigh on them, right? And they cannot find it. Yeah, it happens. But realize that you probably do some other things that are really good, right? Hi, Hogan CB's here too. Oh, hi. Oh, okay, I see. Well, Iron Fire Horse, you're potentially reusing that stuff. I mean, like, there's sites out there like freecycle.org, right? For example, that you can get secondhand stuff, right? And secondhand stuff is not new, technically. So you don't raise the demand on it, because technically it's secondhand. For example, even if you go secondhand at a garage sale, yard sale, or thrift store, now there is something to be said about that. Is that you gotta make sure that you're gonna be able to use it. And the thing is, if it can't be sold at a thrift store or at a yard, specifically at a thrift store, it gets quote unquote donated somewhere else. So just don't think just because you give something at a thrift store that it will get reused or resold, or, for example, because there's just certain things, it's by demand. I mean, your old high school T-shirt that has a brand on it from your high school with your name on, with your name and high school name on it. I mean, like, who really is gonna buy that, really? You know, maybe it's 100% gone. Maybe someone will reuse it and buy it just for the sake of making it into a rag or making it into chart club. But something like that mostly will not get sold at a thrift store just because it's too specific. You know, it has some sort of like year on it, right, or something like that. Maybe I'm not saying it won't, but generally that's kind of stuff doesn't have a high value to it or resale value to it versus something like, oh, it's 100% wool, there's no holes in it, and it's a relatively common size, let's just say large, for example. So it's not that kind of extra large, extra large, or extra small, right? It's generally within the range of where people could potentially see themselves buying it from a first store, a second-hand store, for example. Yes, R for rim. Well, sunflowers, well, I think you know what my favorite R's are in this. I get it. Iron Fire Horse. I mean, I got secondhand battery banks. A few, actually. I'm charging one right now. That was given to me by a friend of mine. I actually found one. And I have another one I haven't shown on the channel yet, but that was secondhand. It still works. I've already charged my phone with it and all this other stuff, amongst some other things. And I just purchased that for $1. So for me, it's just like, okay, I'll give it some new life. And I think it's because the person who was doing this garage sale, right? I've been to their place before, right? I remember them because they had a lot of this promotional stuff. It's because they got a new battery bank, the battery bank that at that time wasn't sufficient enough to charge their phone all the way, right? Hence they got a new one for that reason. So, but they wanted to sell it, obviously, make money, obviously. And I'm like, okay, for $1, yeah. And I'll bring it back to a useful state. Let me see here. Yeah, okay, I see. You pay for nothing used? Yeah. Okay, Iron Powers, but let me go. Actually, you know what? I guess I got some charge on the device right now. I'll show you guys. I got that for $1, and yes, it does have a charge. Alright. Although I've never seen one with a built-in stand before. It's got a built-in stand and a clip. But for me, I was just like, yeah, okay. Because it helps you on the preparedness side, and you know what? It's secondhand, I'll give it some new use, for example. And, I can dedicate this into like some sort of go bag or emergency kit or something like that. So, I'll give it some new life. Or at least back into a useful state again, as much as I can. And yes, I have used it. I mean, frankly, I could just put it on a belt if I wanted to. And use it. I mean, I'll show you guys something else too. There, as I bring this back onto my screen here. And I've thrown into some rubbish bin. Get some more benefits out of this. Because there is still something usable in this. Obviously, because it's biodegradable and stuff like that. So I'll be able to recover that resource. And, maybe it is the sunflowers. Maybe I'm chopping and dropping it back where the sunflowers are. For example, I'll shred it up, increase the surface area, and chop and drop it back into the ground, like by the sunflowers, or in other places that I have around here, and add some fertility back into the ground that got removed when said plant, or in this case the sunflower, was made. You like that clip? Yeah, I never seen a one with a clip. But that's yeah, I understand that Iron Forest. I'm not demonized just because you bought that new. I get that to a certain degree, understanding of your reasoning for it. For example, I get that. Or you're upgrading it. But I think, how do I say? I'm trying to think of how I'm going to put it. Hey, it's Nature's Girls TV. Hi, Jewel. How are you doing? I see you in there. You must have dropped in to see the sunflower, hey? Or something like that. Containers. I'm always going to remember those yellow containers. All the time. I'm always going to remember that. I could still picture you just cutting it with that saw. I'm always, right? As much as possible, right? That's cool. I mean, I've reused containers before too. A lot of the time, as much as I can. Especially if I can reuse them and actually get some more uses out of it. Especially if I don't have to quote unquote buy something new right away. Don't get me wrong, there's a time and place for new, right? I get that. But when possible, reuse something. When possible, as much as you can. Let's see here. Did I miss anything in here? I don't think I missed anything in. Okay, no. Just making sure I didn't miss any part of the chat. So the chat overlay for me that I see is there's no background to it. So, and since I have a background on this right now, I have to make sure I read all the chat because sometimes it can slip by and I'm like, oh, I didn't notice that. For example, I will show you guys here. Something here. No word of lie. Now, I'm not going to show the content. You don't have to wait for the resource hole. But, because I always say what's in the bag. But, generally, I actually put the resource hole in a box. Yes, I will show you guys this. Oops. Oh, I moved that, but... Well, actually, I do have to move it, don't I? Move my chair. See? That's where I put the resource hole things, in this box currently. I actually currently put it in this box right now. And yes, there is stuff inside. I just put the stuff in here. And there's various things in here. Some of the stuff can help for survival, preparedness, prepping. Some of it can help for gardening too. Some of the stuff can help in day-to-day things. And like this, all the stuff, generally speaking, there's only a few things that I got from people, or whatever. A lot of this stuff was just kind of on the landscape. So I'm going to try to put these back into a useful state as much as I can. And some of this stuff is, like, pretty useful. I mean, like, some of the stuff I could use camping. I mean, some of the stuff, if I really wanted to, I can, maybe I have plenty of said item, XYZ item. I can gift it to someone that could use it even more than I could. So that's another reason why I've started to do it like this too. Because I've done this before where, and I mentioned this story before, where I got some things that I found off the landscape and got them back into the hands, literally speaking, to people that could use them. So, and I did all this other stuff, and eventually it got to church. I brought it to a friend, and my friend brought it to a church, and hopefully those items helped some people out, that are less fortunate, people that don't have access to said gear or resources, but, I was able to find them, rescue them, quote unquote, and recover that resource before it kind of went downhill. Because there's a certain point where the resource that it's just like it's too far gone, because it's just whatever it is, right? It just mold, stuffing like that. People don't want to handle it. I get that too. I don't want to handle stuff like that too at times. But I'm like looking at times, I'm just like, but this is someone probably just dropped this like 10 minutes ago, right? I'm gonna bring this back into a useful state again. As much as I can. Can we see that stuff? I'm only seeing the screen that says Sears Live. I just showed it. Very briefly. I keep all plastic bags. I don't buy a lot that comes in plastic, but the dog stuff comes in plastic reusable bags. My friend calls me. Yeah. I mean, there's this fine line on it, right? There's a fine line on it. There's a fine line on something like that. And that could be another video in itself. But yeah, this is just the box I keep it in right now. The reason I actually have to do the resource haul video is because the box is getting full. That's actually why the reasoning for it. Because none of the stuff I dedicated into it to like giving to people or helping people out or to build a kit with, for example. And I guess I could say this now, since I'm already talking about it, is that I'm also working on... Make sure my phone's charging here, because I had to plug it there. Give me a sec. I've been working on something here as a challenge for myself and to piggyback on something else I've done in the past. There will be another I won't really call it a survival kit, but some sort of emergency kit that I'm working on. That, to piggyback on this topic, on the 5 R's, it's gonna be, well, pretty much things that are not new. So to piggyback on like the reusing part on the channel and stuff like that. You'll have to wait for that video I still have to make and then all this other stuff and kind of make a script for it then, Some people already know about this, that I mentioned it off in back rooms and, in the backstage and all that stuff, but just to let you guys know, that might be in the works. I was trying to pull it off for September, for National Preparedness Month, but I decided I need a little bit more time. I didn't want to rush it. So, stay tuned for that. Because it piggies back on the resource haul videos that I do and stuff like that. It's a way of bringing it all together. Literally. And I must have blinked. You're cooking too. I just showed you guys the box, by the way. It was just the box. I'm not showing the contents. You'll have to wait for the video, which I'll eventually record in time. It's gonna... I like how it was cloudy this morning, and now since I've started the stream here, the sun's come back out. Which means I can charge these solar lights that I have. I mentioned the story actually last night on my P.R.E.P stream. I guess I'll mention it again, just in case anyone missed it, didn't hear it, because I know some of you weren't there for that stream, or didn't catch the replay or whatever. But there was this one time, a few years ago, right, where I found a solar light. Technically, the LED parts and stuff like that were working and stuff like that, and the solar panel was still working, but it was abandoned. I mean, it stopped working years later because the solar panel or whatever, but I gave it a couple extra years of life. It helped me out here. I think there was this one time I had a power outage, and actually, yeah, it actually came in handy, so I got that back into a useful state, at least temporarily. A little bit longer. Give some more life into it as much as possible. You know, it just reminds me of that as I'm looking at my solar lights charging right now, because I'm getting solar energy in right now. Or sunlight coming through my windows and stuff like that. So, to me, now is a way of reusing something, at least temporarily, you know. It wasn't all the way, like, I'm still reusing it to this day. Not quite like that. Kind of wish it was still going, but it is what it is. You know. I gave it to one of my scrapping friends, and they scrapped it. I tried to reuse some of the items in it afterwards, but, you know, it is what it is. But I gave it a little bit more life to help me out or help a friend out and stuff like that. Yes, curiosity has CR in it. Yes. I'm just saying. Yeah, Iron Fires. I mean, at that time, right? I was just like thinking, I'm like, yeah. Because, like I said in my previous P.R.E.P streams, that there's potential and resources, you know? I mean, at times, because I've said this before, on some of the resourceful videos amongst some other things, it's just like, sometimes I even find lighters, for example. You know, even something like that. And the thing is, the plastic goes on and all this other stuff, but at times, some of these lighters are still half full. Actually, I actually found one that was 3/4 full, alright? Because once it gets hit, breaks, the resource becomes more or less useless. So I brought it back to a useful state because I was able to kind of notice it at times, you know? And something like that, I could I could throw that into like a kit or whatever and be like, boom, alright, now I got a lighter to go with that. Something that I found off the landscape, you know, recover that resource of it and bring it back to a useful state again. You know, instead of just being like kind of quote unquote abandoned or trashed, right? Especially for something like that, I was just like, it's still useful. I mean, half full, 3/4 full, right? It's still useful. It's still got potential in there. I was just like, yeah, that was a no-brainer to me, right? Because I took a look at my, oh yeah, you know, I take a look at it in the sun or underneath the flashlight. I'm like, yeah, it's still half full, all right? Probably someone just dropped it, all right? Because it happens. And I get that, especially here in the winter or in certain places, right? People drop things for whatever the reason is, right? Or abandon things or leave things behind or forget about something, and it happens, right? It always happens. It's just the way it is. But sometimes I'm like, there's some potential in there. It could be useful. I can use it for something. For example. Yes, curiosity, yes. Exactly, Iron Forest, yes. Oh, and by the way, everyone, I'll show you this. Something else I'm recovering here. As a resource, I'll show you guys here. Let me make sure I pull my chat back to the side. Yeah, see? Recovering the resource. Part of the chop and draw that I'm doing here. See? You guys can see That is what I'm doing right behind the camera here. That's a form of reusing, more like recovering a resource. I mean, people call it rot. I don't like to use that word, really, but it's more like recovering the resource later down the road, aka chop and drop, composting, and all that stuff, right? Not just dumping it into a bin and sending it to landfill, or that resource potentially doesn't do anything for anyone anymore, right? As much as I can, and I'm just kind of chop and drop. Well, not really chop it, but more like break it apart and drop it in a little bit here. I did this another one the other day. And get this resource back into the ground. So it can be reused by Mother Nature and the bugs and all that stuff and help grow some more plants again and continue that kind of circular thing, just like the recycling logo is a circular thing. Yeah, circular. Yes, I like that word. It's got 2 CRs in there. That's why I like that word. I'm just saying, and it fits in with what I do here on the channel. That's nice, Iron Force. That's nice. But unfortunately, that doesn't always happen like that, right? Doesn't always happen like that. So, that's cool. You were still able to kind of, you're like, oh, right? Well, because at that time, then that means you don't have to buy a new one again, right? Or whatever, right? You're still able to use that resource. Not quite reusing, but at least it's more reducing because actually you technically didn't buy a new one or didn't have to buy a new one because you were able to, oops, I forgot it or something like that, and be able to recover it or find it or get a hold of one again. Yeah, circular thing. You forgot the 2 CRs in there, by the way. That's why I like that word more and more as I go along. I'm trying to do what I can here. As much as I can. I guess, things like minimalism and stuff like that are a thing, right? I'm not saying go gather every last thing, but try to reuse the resources as much as you can. I live in a suburban area, so yeah, I see it all the time too. Where, there is a thing called wish cycling, by the way, where you wish and hope that this will get recycled. That's what it actually means, by the way. And there's videos out there. I mean, it varies from area to area, country to country, and all that stuff, state, province, and all that stuff. But there's videos out there where you can actually see how that stuff gets quote unquote recycled. When I watch some content like that, I dived into that. I start to learn a lot more about how that system works. Because you gotta remember, recycling should be the kind of, well, actually landfill should be the last resort, but recycling should be kind of the secondary last resort. And realizing that recycling, it's a business. It's a business, everyone, right? And just like any business out there, they're trying to make a profit. So if it's not profitable or something like that, there's a reason why things get at times exported or incinerated, because of stuff like that. There's a reason why I do things in a certain way. I mean, and stuff like that. So it's more likely to actually be recycled, for example. This is why certain things I don't put in, because I know better. Because I know that it's not pretty much I'm wishing it would. And I see it all the time. I see it all the friggin' time. All the time. Even though I know it's not accepted here. For example, because we have a sheet that says it, right? There's a diagram that says, this is not accepted. This is not. This is not. For example, right? And I see it all the time. Amongst other things such as, here, let's put out this blue bag that has, like, 5 items inside. I mean, like, what's even the point of that? What's even the point of that? That's like, and I hear people say at times, it's like, oh, the bags are cheap, CR, whatever, right? Well, it's not just, 5 cents, 20 cents, whatever for the bag, but if you're doing that all the time, that cost adds up. The cents and the 5 cents all the time add up. And at that rate, right, you'll be spending more within the whole year that in turn you could have spent that money buying food instead. Right? Or another can of beans or another bag of rice or whatever. Right? Because I see it. It's just like, it's so, it's so freaking small. Right? Because I've been to places with an industrial baler, for example, that bale cardboard, for example, right? I've seen that, right? And that's well, I won't name the place, but it's a business, right? So if businesses are sending that to get recycled, quote unquote, it's cardboard, right? I should be able to do it here, right? And so more and more lately, I've decided to, like, put the cardboard together as much as possible. And I just kind of, for example, and to kind of stick that stuff, group the items together as much as I can. Because I don't want to fill up, I mean, look at the garbage bags or whatever, right? People say, people take out quote unquote garbage when it's full. Well, in my opinion, quote unquote recyclable items or whatever should be the same thing. The bags still cost something. There's still a cost that goes along with something like that. Even if it's just 5 cents, 10 cents, that will add up over the whole year, for example. Because if I'm using half the bags, and that amount of bags cost me, let's say, $10 for the whole box, right? If I save half of that, that's $5 I can save on the whole year, and that, I could potentially use that for something else, alright? Instead of just using it for, quote-unquote, bags. And not only that, that means I can get 2 years out of it instead of 1. And, if there's anything like a sale or something like that, I can take advantage of that on those deals. I'm still using stuffing that was priced from 2 years ago or whatever, right? Versus something that has increased in price today or this year, for example, if that makes sense. I mean, I try to do that as much as I can. As much as I can. Because, there's supposed to be an upper limit for, like, garbage in terms of weight here. I just don't know if there's an upper limit for recycling here in terms of weight. I haven't ran into that issue yet. I just want to see that if there's an upper limit for that. And so as far as I know, there's no upper limit for the weight. So I figured might as well just group it all together and stuff like that as much as I can. And going back to, like, learning from seeing these things, right? Did you guys know that, I mean, this depends on the area or whatever. Did you guys know that they use lasers at these recycling facilities? Like, lasers? What? Yeah, they use, light, optical sensors to sort through things. Did you guys know that? I didn't know that until a couple years back, right? So that it's the technology that helps them sort through what they call single stream recycling, right? So it picks up things like, resin off the resin number off of plastics to and stuff like that. And also there's ways of sorting it through air, things that are lighter or heavier metals, ferrous metals like steel and stuff like that. Or they can induce a charge, induce something into like non-ferrous metals and stuff like that, so it can be sorted out, like aluminum, for example, right? It's quite interesting how that technology has advanced, but it's still nowhere perfect. And there's things at times that kind of clog the machine. Like these facilities have rollers that roll the things forward, right? And there's certain things like plastics, like bags or whatever, that get clogged in them. And remember, when machinery stops at a facility, or in this case, recycling facility, that's downtime. And you know what happens when downtime? Lots of money. Because you gotta fix something, solve something, even if it only takes 5 minutes. What happens if it takes half an hour? That's less production, because you're less efficient and stuff like that. Hence, I tried other ways of reusing that stuff or whatever, right? As much as I can. And this kind of, I'm trying not to rant here. I'm really trying not to rant or curse here as much as I can, because I'm trying to keep this educational. But yeah. You have a 50-pound weight on paper. Okay. We buy reusable bags every time. Yeah, see, that's another thing too. That's another thing. I'll dive into what Iron Fire Horse just said right there and just make sure I didn't miss anything. No, okay, that's sort of inside the truck. Okay. That's another thing too, what Iron Horse said. And I'm quoting here what she wrote, I know so many people who buy reusable bags every time they shop, shaking my head. They're plastic fabric, which is crazy. It makes no sense to me. Yeah, because that's just worse, to be honest. Because something like a reusable bag, for example, you actually have, because this comes back to the manufacturing of the production of it, right? The energy itself that is used to create that. It takes a little bit more for a reusable bag up front compared to a single-use thin plastic bag. You need to actually reuse that, I forget how many times, don't quote me on the number, but you have to use it for a bunch of times, right? So buying a bunch of reusable bags and only use all the time or something like what Iron Fire said is just, it's counterproductive. It is counterproductive. For example, if it's like, hey, you're new to a new area or something like that, this is the first reusable bag you're borrowing, yeah, okay, that's one thing, right? Because then, or else it just becomes the same thing. And so you're just migrating that from a single-use bag to a reusable bag. And you're still making that kind of thing happen, for example, right? Because if you look at it, it's just like, and the cost in that all the time, right? Because you're buying it all the time. And this is why I'll go get it right here. Let me just get this. Hold on. I have to go find it. I think I have it somewhere. I'm trying to remember where I put it now. A reusable bag. Sorry, I don't know. I must have misplaced it. I don't see it right now. But look at, I think it was earlier yeah, it was earlier this year, I think. If not this year, then it was last year, 1 to 2. So unless I find it next 5 seconds here. I mean, I showed reusing a reusable bag to make something out of because when I found it, it was ripped. And I brought it back into a useful state again. They had pockets, for example. So that's more. And I showed you guys that to show you guys that what's possible. With a little skill and tools like thread and a needle, for example. It wasn't that difficult. So, something to keep in mind. Because, don't get me wrong, I got reusable bags too. Because I can actually see them. And I'm actually even thinking about that right now. Alright? Because there's a certain point where, just because now, hey, I don't single-use bags everywhere. Well, now you got a bunch of reusable bags. Isn't that the same thing now? Isn't that the same thing? You just kind of changed it slightly. It's kind of more or less the same. You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly, right? I see that kind of crap all the time too when I go around, right? And you just see that. And basically that's the same kind of issue. You just changed it to be in there a different thing, right? And a lot of time, and I mean, not a lot of the time, but at times, right? Some of them aren't even ripped, stained, or anything like that. They're still good just because it becomes disposable, right? Versus what the actual intention of something like that was for example. Really? You got that to go for 9 years? Wow, Iron Forest, wow. I'm impressed by that. I am. I'm totally impressed by that. Straight up, I'm impressed by that. Iron Fire Horse. Just let me grab some. I don't have that reusable bag, but I'll show their version of it. This I know I've shown on the channel before. Reusable right here. Just in case. Yeah, I get that. Alright, I get that. I'll show something right here. Look. Alright, I've shown this before. Alright, look at this. This is something. All this. Sorry, let me just move that to the side here. Keep it on screen. All the materials here were reused. I found this. All these came from something else that was previously quote-unquote ripped. So I took the good parts out of it, the good material out of it. I had to cut it down and all that stuff, right? And for the most part... I'll bring this back on the screen here. Alright. Take care, Ren. Safe travels out there, man. But, something like this, I've shown you guys on the channel before. Alright? And it wasn't even that difficult to make. I mean, I even made it by hand, just for the challenge, right? Also, you can use the sewing machine. That you see, virtually all the materials are secondhand. Reused items for it, right? And they're like, wow, you made it, right? And I show these people, and I show you guys this, to inspire you guys to this kind of, how some people say, skills over gear, or whatever, right? So, just something I don't use it all the time, but I do use this. And people see this and they're like, wow, I'm like, almost at times. And like I said, none of those materials are new. Well, maybe some of the thread may be kind of more newer, but the material itself, the fabric, quote unquote, the fabric of it, none of that was new. That was just reclaimed material. Things that were either discarded, not used anymore. The zipper was ripped on this bag, so blah, 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 right? I took the time to dismantle it and brought it back into a useful state again. So an example of gear that I did it with done something with to reuse it for and bring it back into a useful state. Iron powers. I see. Alright? Oh, I appreciate that one comment from you too. Speak of which. I gotta remember one additional thing here. Because I need to be proactive here. Remember when I said about it's sunny outside? I gotta take advantage of this time too. I might be live, but I gotta do things in the real world too. So I'm gonna take advantage of this solar energy at the same time. So I'm multitasking this at the same time. So that way I can actually use the solar energy by charging up some solar lights at the same time. Because right now the sun's very, very bright right now, and I want to make sure I take advantage of this opportunity. So I'm doing this at the same time while I do this. Like literally. You know, and stuff like that. Because, like I said, sometimes I find things out there and just like, especially extremely useful things. Or things that, you know, for example, like, said later. For example, you know, I could help someone out with that if I wanted to. Or dedicate it into a kit automatically. And I'd have to buy something new because, oh, look at that. I found a 3/4 full lighter. I can instantly add that into a go bag and be like, you know what? Now I got something for that kid that I didn't have to per se purchase right away. Save me a little bit of money. That said item gets reused instead of just randomly on the ground. Helps me out. Helps the environment out to a certain degree. And I'm able to use it. And that's what I'm doing right now is actually, like I said, I'm just putting out my solar lights. Because the skies have actually cleared, so. And I definitely want to take advantage of that time here. So give me 1 second. Just like, not even a second. I need both hands for it. And it's chilly outside. It's a tad chilly outside, but yeah, you know, this is why I do things like this. Alright? You know, sometimes it is for the preparedness part, you know? The silver lights, you know? I do it for the preparedness part, but I do it for other reasons too. It's just so I don't even have to leave some sort of nightlight on, for example. That's actually one of the reasons why I actually do the solar lights now. And so I don't have to leave a nightlight on. It's better than a nightlight. Well, I shouldn't say better, but it's more sustainable than a nightlight. And all I have to do is recharge it via whatever, right? In this case, it's solar. And use that stuff. I've shown the solar lights before, right? I've been using them for like over a year now. Like, pretty much, if not every single day. So it's not just some item that I bought that for a rainy day. Well, not for a rainy day in this case, but where I'm only using it once in the year. This is something I'm using all the time kind of deal, right? Which means that I'm getting that full use out of it as much as possible. And it's not just something, I bought it and I used it like once. Or I never brought it, took it out of the box kind of deal. No. I mean, there's other things that I've done that are similar to that. I mean, I've shown on the channel, especially on one resource hole videos, I know I have at least once.
because I remember it, because I showed it with the multimeter to show that. I found a lithium ion battery, like one of those lithium batteries before, right? From Energizer. And it still had, it wasn't a full 1.7 volts, but it was 1.6. That was on the ground, for example, right? Pretty much, I could guarantee almost every single other person who saw it would just walk by it, right? Alright? And I can understand why, right? Oh, it's probably dead. Why would it be on the ground? Why would something useful like that be on the ground? Well, sometimes things happen. Things roll out. Things slip out of a vehicle or whatever, right? And assuming that without checking, right? As soon as I got home with that battery, I was like, checking it right away. I was just like, damn, it's still got like 1.6 volts. I could still potentially use that for something later down the road, because it still has that quote unquote it's best before thing. I have what, 2030, 2035, whatever it is, right? And those kind of, it's supposed to hold the charge longer, right? Not leak or whatever. So I'm like, to me, it was one of those things that just kind of made sense, just because, you know, I'm reusing something. This doesn't get wasted, potentially, and I can help, and it will help on the preparedness side of things. So multiple reasons why I did it. It's just like, yeah, to me that just makes sense. If that makes any sense. I hope that made sense. Maybe I should stop using the word sense. Here. Oh, okay, yeah. Well, iron force, like I said, it's just, you gotta remember, it just depends on the area, right? Some people find certain things, other people find other things, right? You know, do what you can, you know? Because you never really know until you take a look. And don't assume. Yeah, don't get me wrong, there's times where I find batteries, I check, I'm like, ah, damn, it's flat, alright? But always assuming like that means that I might miss, you know, something very useful, because I assumed, because, most of the time it is, you know, and most of the time it is like that with batteries that I find, but then there's other times where I'm just like, nope. Even to the point, I've actually found rechargeable batteries before. AA, AAA, all from the proper popular brands out there, right? I mean, it's just one of those things. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna reuse this. It still works. It's reusable or rechargeable, and I can use it, for example, like in the solar lights, for example, as a contingency or an alternative power battery from the original, and it can help on the preparedness side. To me, that just makes total sense why, yeah, that made total sense, right? Because a lot of benefits, right? The resource gets used to its full potential as much as possible. It helps on the preparedness side for me, because, you know, now I have a spare, for example. It's useful. I can use it in a flashlight or a solar light and go from there. Your son seems to buy the best. And it just depends. You know, I'm not saying pick up this or that or whatever. I get it, whatever, right? But, I mean, some things out there, you know, I mean, are useful. I'm not saying pick up certain this or that, right? But some things, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, like, if I asked anyone out there, any one of you, even myself, anyone out there, you know, if you find money, people pick up money if they see it. You find a $5 bill, a 10, a 20, right? Or people just don't walk by and be like, oh, I'm not picking that up because it's on the ground. No, because there's value, instant value you can see right away. I think it's because some people don't notice the value of things until whatever, right? It's just like with the batteries, it's like, oh, it's probably dead or whatever. Ah, it's late or whatever, right? It's probably dead, right? Well, did you even check? or is that an assumption? You know, and don't get me wrong. Sometimes the battery's dead all the way. Sometimes the lighter's dead all the way, right? Yeah. Don't get me wrong, right? I get punked like that. But then there's other times where I'm just like looking, I'm like, oh, look at that. Good thing I just took a look. The lighter's all the way full, 3/4 full. The battery still has charge on it. Oh, look at that. Because I can see the battery, I just don't know right away. I'm like, oh, look at that. It's an actual rechargeable one. You know, I bring it back, I charge it back up, and next thing you know, I got a rechargeable battery for free. And not only that, it gets reused again. For example, yes. I mean, he's out and about a lot. Yeah. You know, and stuff like that. You gotta keep that in mind. I'm not saying, you know, certain little things, I get it, whatever. I get that. You know, I'm not saying, but just keep it in mind. Keep it in mind, all right? You know, sometimes I turn down things too, just because I'm like, I don't want to handle it. I get that. Or whatever, right? I get that. But then, you know, saying that you don't have a lighter, saying you don't have a bat or whatever when you just turned one away, well, I don't know, right? You know what I mean? I gotta check on something real quick here. Yes, exactly. I gotta check something out here. Hold on one sec. I gotta check on something. Sorry, I had to check on something real quick here. Because it's actually sunny out here. But yeah. I mean, I could, you know, I can show you some recyclable things or whatever, right? And I do it in a certain way now. After learning about how it actually gets recycled or how they sort through it. Like, because from what I've heard, you know, plastic, you're not supposed to find plastic, by the way. You're supposed to keep it three-dimensional. It's because the optical sorters that sort through it pick that up. They pick up that it's three-dimensional. It's so the resin number on it, like it's PET or whatever, number 1 or number 2 or whatever, can be picked up. So they can pick it up, and then, you know, a gust of air or blower kind of blows it to the side to one spot or there, and the rest of it falls through, for example. So that's what I've been trying to do. But one of the things I started to do was actually nest the cups together, the containers together as much as possible, right? So it saves room. Because honestly, a bin or a bag, there's a finite amount of space, right? Because like anything that gets recycled or whatever, there's space is a thing, right? It's always been like that, right? So I'm always trying to maximize the space as much as possible, nest things together whenever possible, right? Whenever possible, and stuff like that. Just like how, you know, stores out there have an industrial baler for their cardboard that they have in the back that normal consumers don't see unless you work at a place and can see that in the back. You wouldn't even know about that kind of stuff. Wow, really, Penny? His last big climb was furniture, and it sits on your porch now with tables that match. Cool, right? That's cool. You know, and give some of this stuff a second chance at times, right? Especially some offcuts, let's say wood or whatever, right? You know, you're using it for something else. I've done that before. You know, I can't show you because I have stuff on it, but you know, I took this. It was because I was helping someone out, actually clean out their garage or whatever, right? And there was an old desk or whatever with whatever, right? I didn't need the desk part, but I took the shelves, not the shelves, but the doors, 3 doors, some screws that I had laying around from something else, put it together to make a shelf, or at least, you know, a top and 2 walls. And I used some scrap wood to reinforce the back end as corners, right? Reinforce the corners using, you know, quote unquote the triangles, right? Because the triangle is a strong shape for what it is. And now I use it to increase the storage area that I have because, yeah. And to me, it made sense, right? I don't have to buy it. I reuse something for it, and I give an item that's probably been like sitting in the garage for like years and years, probably years and years, probably 10 years, or 10 years maybe, all right? Instead of being it kind of shredded or whatever, right? Incinerated or whatever, right? Oh, cool. Yes, that's cool. Let's see, what time am I at? I'll still keep going, why not? As long as the stories keep going for me. As much as possible, we'll see. We'll see. I'll go for at least another half an hour. Because I can almost talk about this for like hours at times. Literally, I could almost talk about this for hours. I'm just getting some sunlight out. Because I haven't seen the sun in the last couple of days, so I'm just out here just getting some solar energy on my face. Just kind of enjoying it. It's kind of cold out, actually, right now, but I'll get some solar energy into me. And besides, I had to bring the solar lights out so they get charged better as much as I can. Because I actually, like I said, I use them as part of my preparedness thing too, so. Just because, yeah. And, you know, they're not just decorative. They're functional too. You know, that kind of thing. And if absolutely necessary, I can use them for other reasons, you know. Even last night, you know. Last night before I went to bed, I had one of them up. Because I can set it up in a certain way that it aims the light source down. I'm able to see within the whole room, right? I can just fall asleep to that, you know. If I gotta wake up in the middle of the night to use the washroom or something like that, I'd be like, you know, I got the light source on already. Right? I don't even have to, quote unquote, turn on the light source just because it's still on, right? So it's just one of those things. Oh, okay, Iron Fibers. Take care. I appreciate you dropping by and giving some input within this. Very, very nice. So yeah, it's just one of those things to me. It just makes sense. I mean, I've modified them slightly. You were using a few things, amongst some other things that I reused, and next thing you know, it's just like, yeah, adding some functionality into it. And get a little bit more use out of it, and stuff like that. Yeah. Among some other things that I have, and I'm trying to reuse as much as possible, right? Such as all this chop stuff. As much as I can. Now, you know, I guess this goes without saying, right? Even for me, I can't reuse every last thing, unfortunately. Or I'm not able to because I cannot bring it back, or I can't separate it, right? And that's the hard part at times, right? The separation of things, the materials. Because sometimes, especially in an industrial setting, right? Like a recycling facility, unfortunately, some things are hard to separate, or it costs more to separate than the value of said material. Plastic is an example of that. Usually plastic is kind of downcycled into something. So bottles are shredded to make fibers for a piece of clothing. So said bottle doesn't get reused into making a new bottle again. And actually plastic, there's new methods on it, but generally it shrinks down, which means you still need to add in some virgin plastic back into the system for strength, durability, characteristics like that they still have to maintain because they still have to, like I said, they still have to make their end user or whoever buys that said raw material, it still has to be high value, or else, yeah, right. Or if it's too expensive, well, no one's gonna use it because virgin plastic's cheaper, for example. So something to keep in mind, you know. you know, I mean, I could go into this like kind of like clothing thing, this is a thing too. It is a thing too, all right. Just because you see some article of clothing that says made from 65% recycled material or plastic, right? Where did that actually get sourced from? Because right now it's just like we don't have a way of converting something like aluminum, like metals, or glass to a certain degree too, right? Even paper to a certain degree too can be reused and recovered back into its original state. For example, like aluminum can be kind of melted back down, and aluminum cans can be melted back down to make aluminum cans again. Bottles could almost be, well, yeah. Steel and glass could be melted down to make steel products and glass products again. Plastic is kind of different. Supposedly there's new technology that will change that, but, it's not mainstream yet, right? Or if it is, it's on a small scale still and stuff like that. Or it takes more time or time or money for it, so it's not profitable, right? Because if it's not profitable, no one's gonna do it. Because, like I said, these are still businesses. A recycling facility is still a business. They still gotta pay the workers more or less a fair wage or whatever, right? They still gotta run the equipment, the power, insurance, and all this other stuff. So something to keep in mind as much as possible because it is a thing, Because I've been looking this up, as much as I look up the survivalism, preparedness community type of videos, I'm also looking up this other stuff too. Just so I know exactly what I'm doing here and help that situation a little bit better. And like I said in the description, what is the way forward for our home right now, right? What is the way forward? To me, in my opinion, the way forward is actually the reusing part as much as possible, or at least cycling it back in, or just quote-unquote circular. I know it's got two CRs in there. As much as possible, right? I get it for, in a survival situation, the grid's down, lack of water. Okay, I can understand disposable. I can understand that, right? I'm not that, I got paper plates too, or whatever, right? But day to day, I'm not using that. That's for emergency, just in case, if absolutely necessary, right? If absolutely necessary. But, day to day, I'm using a metal, metal fork, metal spoon, a glass bottle, a reusable bottle, as much as I can, right? As much as I can. And using that kind of single-use stuff very, very extremely seldomly, if not at all, right? Or as a last resort or in emergency, right? That's the only time I would use that stuff. Unless otherwise, right? Unless otherwise. Because, yeah, because don't get, I mean, even now, I don't even, just heard something. Sorry. I thought I heard something. I was just making sure nothing fell. But, even in the last, like, year and a half, I've started to use a reusable coffee filter. Hey, don't get me wrong, I still have those quote unquote white coffee filters. They're just a backup, an emergency supply of it, right? I already bought them, right? So I'm not just gonna toss that already, right? You know, use up what you have first, obviously, right? But I'm not gonna buy new ones anymore because I don't need to. Because I should be good with what I have. You know, if absolutely necessary, you know, I can dip into that. Like they're sitting like 2 feet away from me. I can see them. I just have them stored to the side. You know, and stuff like that because I stopped using quote unquote coffee maker. I'm starting to use, you know, stuff like a percolator or drip coffee, for example. A lot more. Speak of coffee. Check some. So that's one of the things I've started to do more and more. I guess another thing is don't waste coffee, right? As much as possible. As much as possible. You know? I mean, don't get me wrong. Sometimes, you know, it's like, oh, I forgot my cup. Oh, you know, I done that once. I was like, I hated that. I was like thinking 15 minutes later, I was so far away. I was just like, damn it. I can't believe I did that, right? By accident, right? I didn't want it. So, I'm not perfectly at it, right? I tried to do what I can as much as possible, right? Not just on the preparedness side, but on the environmental side, as much as I can. Because, like I said, there's other benefits to it. Like I said, you know, hey, look, I found this rechargeable battery. I'm saving money because I'm not buying the coffee filters all the time, kind of deal. Something along the lines of that. Which also means that it could help me somewhere else because I'm saving the money. In this case, you know, I can get another can of beans or whatever, right? Another bag of rice or something along the lines of that. You know, as much as I can. Where am I at? So let's see the time. It's at the bottom of the hour. So I will go at least until the top of the hour. I'm not sure if I'll go any longer unless people want to drop by or have more to say or whatever. Because I haven't seen a comment for the last couple minutes here. It's all good. Although I still have supposedly 2 in here. Perhaps people are kind of lurking or left it playing. I appreciate it. So, another thing I started to do was, I'm not going to show yet because there's a certain reason why I'm not showing it. But one thing I started to do was write down my ideas for the content on the channel on scrap pieces of paper. Like literally scrap pieces of paper. Like, it's in my hands right now. So labels from other things. You know, here's a can of quote unquote soup or whatever, right? I actually ripped the label off carefully, right? Cut it, make it nice, alright? I have it as a scrap piece of paper in my kind of quote unquote ideas book that I've added in. So it'll be a single use type of reusing, but instead of using a fresh piece of paper, I'll just use something like this. I mean, it's in my one of them's in my hand, right? But just in case if I gotta draw someone down or whatever, I can just drop that idea down right away. I mean, it'll be a single use reuse. It won't be a multiple time reuse. Yes, even reusing, I you know, single time versus multiple times. Because of the way that you're down cycling it, for example. So, an example of that would be, okay, here's a 100% t-shirt. You've worn it, you got 5 years out of it, it's got a hole in it. Or whatever, right? Stained, heavily stained, doesn't fit you, whatever, right? And no one's gonna buy that because it's stained or it's got a hole in it, right? Let's just face it, right? Or you don't go out and buy a t-shirt that has a hole in it or a bunch of stains on it. Probably not. So people may convert it into rags, right? And that can be multiple uses, right? You get a lot of uses as, okay, now the reg's starting to fall apart, pray, whatever, right? So you make it into something that you clean a floor with or something along the lines of that. Okay, now it's, you've stained it heavily, you've washed it so many times now, right? It's starting to whatever fall apart even more, right? 100% gone. Then the last resort for me for something like that is to make it into char cloth. But once it's in that char cloth kind of state, that's a single time reuse because I cannot undo that chemical reaction, right? I cannot bring that t-shirt all the way back to a rag again, or that rag back, right, the char cloth back into a rag again, for example. And char cloth, once you burn it or make it, it's pretty much that, right? So, kind of that single use of reusing versus multiple times of reusing, being able to reuse it. Yeah, I see. The phone's in front of me. I'm trying to project into it, so sorry, man. Does it? I'll have to replay the audio on this. I didn't think I was having issues with the um, Prism Live. Perhaps it's from something else I did. I'll double check that. Because I have an indicator on screen that's not so bad. So. But been having technical issues like all month. Really? I didn't even change anything. It's probably because I'm not projecting towards the phone or whatever, right? And I'm not using a mic. I mean, whatever, a headset or whatever. Or a wired headset or something like that. Maybe it's probably just that, yeah. Because I've been streaming for like the last 90 minutes. And I used this last night for another stream, so as far as I know, I never had issues with that app. Aside from more other things that I just simply can't do. Right. Oh, and hi, hello, GP. Forgive me, I didn't even say hi. I should have said hi first. Hi, GP. Got him having in the house with me. Right. Part of the survival preparedness community, and of course, someone I like to talk to. Tell the wife I say hi. Tell her I say hi. And I'm virtually waving. I'm actually waving. You can't see it because I'm behind the camera, but I am actually waving. Yes, I'm actually waving, yeah. So any options on really? Really? Hey, what? That could be for nursery. I'm trying to stay on topic on this one, GB. I'm trying to stay on topic on this one as much as I can. As much as I can. No, I'm just kind of reusing my sunflower husks or shells. That is what I'm doing. Just giving Mother Nature a little helping hand on this one before I drop it out there in a little bit. Give Mother Nature a little helping hand here. Especially since I gotta put it in here anyway, so I might as well just, decrease the time it takes for decomposition, and hopefully, and in time, I'll be recovering this resource. Yes. Reduce some food waste. I guess this could be a form of reusing. See how I'm adding these words in randomly, even without saying the 5 R's? There could be more. I know there is technically supposed to be 7 or 6 or 7. Well, generally 5. So, I do what I can here, as much as I can. As much as I can. I try. I've mentioned this story before in my last camp out, Like even my last camp out, right? Even that video, right? Where I was reconnecting with the land, air, and water too, in that area, right? Amongst some other things that I was doing, and the people, you know, I was also quote unquote scavenging, right? Because this is a public public campsite at that time, right? I mean, I can show you guys more, but just because, for the sake of privacy and all that stuff to the people around. But, and, I just didn't want to actually, like, bring the camera because I had to go to the spot. When people leave campgrounds or whatever, especially this place I attend to at times on an almost yearly basis, that at times, because this will relate into what I'm saying too for this stream about the resources and all that stuff, the gear and all that stuff. And I'll show you an example in a little bit again because it's right next to me. Is that a lot of the time, like almost every time, especially since I've started doing it more and more when I'm at this campsite, because sometimes people leave early, or I'm not the first one to leave, right? I mean, and don't get me wrong, I never do this unless the campsite's totally empty, right? They've abandoned it, they left, they're already on the road, right? They're already on the highway back to home or whatever, right? Sometimes people leave things behind, and because this is one of these, this site is actually maintained by people like picking up quote unquote garbage after, right? So it's free game anyways, right? Really, the people around there don't care. They're like, yeah, go ahead, right? Because they always say, oh yeah, it saves us the trouble of doing this, right? Just don't make a mess, right? That you say, right? And I never do. I always try to leave it exactly the same or better, right? It's not like I throw this over there, throw that over 10 feet away. No, I never do it like that. I just kind of keep it more or less contained as much as possible. But sometimes people leave things behind like cordage. And not just miscellaneous, cheap, cordage. Sometimes it actually is paracord, or at least, that has, an outer shell or sheath with inner strands inside of it, right? And sometimes it's a usable length of it, 6-7 feet, the last time I went, I showed one that, I had one that, well, although that one was in paracord, but the other one that was black, some of those pieces or amounts were like 6-7 feet. I'm like, that is usable. That's definitely usable. Hell, I could change my shoelace, right, and put that in, for example, and this is just stuff people kind of left behind. I mean, not to get into a whole discussion about knots and all that stuff and why I think about that. So it's just one of those things that I was just like, yeah. To me, that was a no-brainer. It's because people are rushing out and stuff like that. I get that, right? But this comes back to like, the reducing part of it, right? So, being able to tie things together in a certain way so you can actually reclaim the cordage after whenever possible, right? Yeah, I get it. You may have to cut, I guess. I get it, all right. But some of those things that I saw were just kind of like, I mean, don't get me wrong, some of them I actually had to cut because some of them, the knots were so tight, there was no way of undoing them. Right? But some of them I was able to undo still, right? It just took me 2 minutes instead of whatever, right? So, I mean, I was just able to find this extra cordage that I could use. I mean, to me, that was, because the thing is, yeah, the guys on the site will pick it up, but unless they decide to use it or whatever, it was probably destined for a landfill. I'm sorry, this is how it was, right? I get it, right? So, to me, I'll reuse it, add to my quote-unquote stash of preparedness things. Maybe I mean, I could give it to people if I wanted to. If I really want to, and it wouldn't even concern me. It wouldn't even matter. Or if I lost, it wouldn't even concern me because I found it for free. Alright? And it's just like, yeah. And like I said, some of that cordage was probably bought for that trip. For example, right? It was probably not even weeks old. Right? They probably just bought it for that trip. Before they left their home, they probably bought this cordage. You know, a 50-foot spool of it, whatever, something like that, or a hank of it, right? Like, because I know absolutely they did take parts of it. Because I could tell because it was cut in a certain way, right? But, like I said, they were probably rushing out, right? Trying to, pack up camp and stuff like that as much as possible, you know? So something that I every so often do when I'm out there. And I see it every so often, at times too. It's quarter two. So I'll probably go until the top of the hour. Yeah, I'll go to the top of the hour. Why not? Keep forgetting I started a couple minutes early, didn't I? And not quite at the bottom of the hour, so. Well, I actually no, bottom of the hour. I started at before the top of that hour, so like 10 minutes early. So it'll be slightly over 2 hours here. Yes. I've been reusing it. I have one that I've shown in a previous video, and a previous live stream. I'm not just going to show it here, but and I made it into a bracelet, braided it together. Something like that. So I'm just going to keep doing this stuff as much as I can. And yes, I am chopping and dropping stuff. I'm actually doing it while I talk about this. Just cause. They're actually in my hands right now. Right, you can hear me probably doing this. As I increase the surface area as much as possible on this. As I actually will be dropping this outside. Allow Mother Nature to kind of, and the microbes and all that stuff to break this down over the winter for me. Add some more fertility to soil. Recover the resource of it. Instead of landfilling it or whatever. And kind of keeping the biomass in this case local as much as possible. And everything else is a second contingency plan or whatever, right? Because like I said earlier, I mean, like, look what happened in Paris. I mean, I know it's happened in New York City before, right? I mean, some sort of sanitation strike or whatever, right? Imagine that happened in your own area, right? If that happened to me here, I'd be like, okay, yeah, I'd still be concerned, don't get me wrong, right? But I'd be like doing whatever I can to reuse everything, minimize any type of trash or rubbish as much as possible, right? Because what I've said before is, hello, Idaho Grinder, I see you in there. Okay. Well, maybe I'll go a little bit longer. If she's here too. I know, I'm dropping, so I'm doing some stuff too, alright? Like, not even kidding, it's like in front of me. I'll show you once I finish this little batch of it. But I was just thinking, like, if you're, and I get certain businesses or places or whatever, I understand some of them have more or less, but compared to residential, but, I'd be like, because it comes back to, even coming back to the preparedness part, right? What happens if you were in that area, right? Grid down or something along the lines like that, right? Where there is no pickup or whatever, right? What are you doing with that kind of stuff, right? Because if you're able to reuse it for other means, recover said items like chop and drop it, bury it, compost it, right? Yeah. What about some of that other stuff? What are you able to do with it? For example, right? Even the cardboard, right? Maybe you're using that brown cardboard with no stickers or plastic on it, and you're kind of using it to kind of lay down on in your garden or chopping and dropping it back in as a source of carbon, I believe. Yeah, because I think it's a brown, isn't it? Yeah, it's a brown. If I know right. It's a source of carbon. Because one of the things I've said to people is that when recycling is done more or less right, to a certain degree, it shouldn't actually smell. Because there shouldn't be any food residue left over. Usually, I think, you know, things like garbage smell because of food, because of the biomass inside of it. Right? That's more or less why garbage stinks, because the biomass inside. Right? You know what I mean? Like the food. Because it goes through fermentation and it starts to get insects, right? If it's out in the middle of like on a hot summer day in a bin or whatever and heats up, it's gonna smell. The smell goes down in the cold because decomposition of stuff like that kind of is slower, but it's colder, like below freezing. So I mean, I do what I can, and stuff like that. Like even with the cardboard I have, I separate that out because that's why I'm able to do. Like I said, I live in a suburban area already. I'll lie about that for the sake of transparency, right? So, like, some of the stuff I've had for like weeks doesn't smell because there's no food on it, right? It's just plain cardboard or absolutely very minimal food on it, if anything at all. So it's not gonna have a smell because it doesn't have a smell or food on it, it's not gonna attract insects or bugs or rats to it because there's no food there in the first place. Right? Now I'm not saying a rat's not gonna eat cardboard in time, but there's a difference between like a pizza box that has a bunch of food residue or whatever left behind versus one that's relatively clean. Right? There's a difference. And when the food residue is not on there, like I said, it's not gonna smell, just because there's nothing there anymore, right? So I can keep that stuff laying around for a while because I know there's no food residue on it. So, like in theory, if there was some sort of sanitation strike, I could, in theory, keep the recycling for a longer period of time. Relatively speaking. It depends on other things, right? Because sometimes if you're washing something out, yeah, I get that, right? It depends what's going on at that time. And I appreciate everyone coming by and watch and hear me out. I was trying not to make this as a rant, to be honest. I'm trying not to make this as a rant, by the way. Like I said, I'm there for the preparedness community as much as I'm there for the environmental community too. Right? I am subscribed to some of the bunch of the channels out there, or seen the footage, or seen the videos. Right? Okay, just like the garden community, I'm part of that too. I might not always be quote unquote subscribed in or something like that, but I am watching the content. I just haven't, committed to subscribing in yet, for example. Now that I'm almost done here on this patch, let's kind of take a look here. Shake this around. I'll show you guys right here. Very enjoying the time. I appreciate that. Yeah, see. Well, I guess you saw me there. Alright, I thought I had this back into this. Let's hit the camera flip. Yeah, there we go. See? All the stuff I'm
chopping and dropping it back in. The only reason I'm taking the time to do this because I'm actually doing this while I'm doing the live stream, and it'll accelerate the process a little bit more because I live in a lower number growing zone, right? So decomposition slows down in the winter here, just because the microbes aren't really doing much, right? So pretty much the only thing that really breaks things down around here during the winter is the fungi and stuff like that. So I'm just increasing the surface area as much as I can. And you can see a bunch of stuff in here. Alright, coffee grounds and all that stuff. I got my sunflower seed shells in this too. Expand that back out. Yeah. Doing stuff like that. So yes, I'm not just saying this stuff. Alright, I'm actually trying it. Right. The best that I can. And with this kind of add some fertility into the ground to recover the resource of it as much as possible. As much as possible. I mean, and this is stuff I know. Right? I know what went into it. I mean, like, literally, I just grew these sunflowers. Like, it's only been, like, not even a month. Not even a month. Right? Because these sunflowers were still on the plant a month ago. In the ground a month ago. So, basically, like, a month later, they're going to be back in the ground. Or back with outside for me. As much as possible. Ah, I appreciate that, GP. Yes, hi, Guardian! So yeah, do what you can out there as much as you can. I just have this in a tray, well, metal tin, just so I can shake it around, stir it around. Like, I know some people don't like to quite do the effort for this, but the reason I do this is because increase the surface area and all this stuff is because the rate of decomposition is slower here in the winter. And I'm trying to, like, accelerate the process a bit. So increasing the surface area or fragmenting the pieces definitely increases the surface area. You know, breaking something in half gives it more surface area. The microbes and all that stuff, the fungi can break it down relatively faster just because the increase in surface area. As much as, and it's easier for me to broadcast it out because it's actually more fine, for example. That way I don't have a heavy concentration of certain little things. Because there is a certain, because I have watched videos, there's 2 videos out there I've seen about coffee grounds, and it's more or less the same thing. They both live here in Canada, for example, and I've seen, and it was on a different time in terms of, like, one just came out and another one was out, like, last year, but talked about coffee grounds and, you know, about, oh, yeah, it's available for free or whatever, you can go to a Starbucks or Timmy's or whatever, right, and get it, you know, relatively easily, right, because it's a byproduct of coffee making, right, so people like to reuse that resource as much as possible, because these places, the spent grounds, they sit around, right, they need to do something about it, right, and yet, you know, and if absolutely necessary, they landfill it, but they don't want to, right? So you can go to these places and ask for it. They'll give you a bag. They'll just give it to you. They'll be like, here's a bag, right? Or whatever, right? You know, and people bring it home, for example, right? But one of the things I've started to learn, and it supports these findings that these people that did videos, like bigger channels, you know, 100K and all that stuff, right? Soil scientists, they got a degree in it, whatever, right? Is that, yes, it can add fertility to the ground, and, you know, maybe some minor weight suppression or whatever, right? But one thing I did find is that in heavy concentrations, thick concentrations, it can actually be less beneficial or not as great. This is why I've started to, well, I've always done it like this pretty much is, except for this one year because someone decided to drop a whole bunch on and not tell me, like in a thick layer, like inches of it, right? This is why I usually just broadcast it out, spread it out throughout the whole garden bed, right? Give it time to break down a lot more, and not add it into a thick concentrated layer of it, because I've seen this with my own eyes. I've seen it with my own eyes about it too, right? Because because if you look at the coffee grounds, and try this out, right? The coffee grounds, just lay it thicker and try to put water on top. Look what happens. What starts to happen is it starts to gel. It doesn't soak through, which means it's a barrier for the air, which means that the ground or the soil can't get air if it's in high concentration. Like it becomes more, the liquid becomes more viscous. I guess the water becomes more viscous. Its viscosity increases. It becomes thicker, almost like slime-like, right? And this is why I actually always broadcast it out and make sure that it's spread throughout, right? A thin layer of it, but it's spread out widely, and just give the soil, the microbes, and all that stuff time to actually break it down so it's not so concentrated. What's up, Buck? I see you in there. If not recycling, then at least the composting part of Idaho Garden Girl. And maybe I will go longer just because you guys are in here. Yeah, screw it. It's my stream. I'll go longer. I still got time on this. And I'm not hungry yet. So I still got time. So why not? And then I'm not on the StreamYard side. So I got plenty of time. Why not? I'll keep going. Just because Tuck's in here. Rant all you want. I'm not trying to rant here, Idaho Garden Girl. I'm trying to make this very educational. And I'm not trying to take sides, alright? Like I said, I'm reusing a piece of plastic. I got a plastic cup next to me, alright? But I also have a reusable bottle right next to it too. But I also have, there's a label from whatever, right? But I also have a glass container that I'm reusing too, right? So I'm not trying to be a hypocrite here, right? But for a degree of transparency on this stream, a little bit more. I'm sure it'll compost eventually. Yeah, okay, Tuck. So I do what I can here. Because, let's face it, in today's world, it's really hard to get away from plastic. Come on. It's not the tools, it's that plastic molded or injected molded knife that you just got. It has, maybe you don't like it or whatever, and it has a wooden handle or whatever, right? But, maybe it's got a plastic handle to cut down on costs. Our tripods that we use, right? Those selfie stick adapters or whatever, or those mounts, right? Yeah, it's got some metal in there, but it's mostly plastic to keep the weight down, right? How many people would have, like, a non-plastic phone holder or stand or a tripod? How many people would, right? Yeah, there is some metals inside, but there is some plastics inside too, right? I have a tripod right here, right? Yeah, there's metals inside, yeah, but there's still plastics too, right? Our phones or devices that we're watching or listening on, right? For example, even our headsets, cables at times, right? It's gonna, it's higher quality because it's got, metal end or whatever. Yeah, okay, but it's still got plastic somewhere along the lines of it, right? Scissors, right? I mean, yeah, I got a full, quote-unquote, what I call full-tank scissors. They're all metal, right? But some of these other scissors, they're like rat tan or whatever, as I would call it. And they got plastic injected, kind of molded handles, right? I got one right in front of me. I can see it, I might have this ceramic coffee mug right here, but, Sometimes, a friend gets me a coffee, right? It's in disposable cup, right? And I don't want to say no to them, and they already bought it, for example, right? So I'm not just gonna be like, oh, I'm not having this because it's in the disposable cup, right? That'd just be a waste, and my friend or whoever gave it to me would can be kind of like ticked off that I wouldn't accept that, right? So it's very extremely hard to get away from it at times, and this is why at times, you know, these stories, well, real world and fictional, right? Water balls rushing, washing up on a shore at a beach or whatever. Finding lighters randomly on a beach in the middle of, like, in the Pacific, for example, right? Or a water bottle because that stuff happens. Very extremely hard to get away from it, for example. Like, look at out in space right now, right? Look at the debris left over from, like, satellites, micrometer meter hits, right? From fragments in the sky, in space, in low Earth orbit, and all that stuff, right? That stuff's just flying out there until it loses enough energy to, be burned back in the atmosphere. But that stuff lingers out there, right? Hell, plastic's all the way on, like, Mars right now. That's true. There's plastic on Mars. Although it's mostly metal, but the rovers that they use, right? I'm pretty sure they're not all metal. There's some plastic components in there to cut down on cost. Alright? Probably not a lot, but it's probably out there. So, like, we can't avoid it now. But what we can do is kind of realize that we need to bring it back into a useful state again as much as possible. You know what I mean? Awesome, GP. Awesome, I see that coming. Old school scan and paint. Hey, you know what? That's kind of cool talk. That's a form of reusing right there, right? That's a form of reusing right there. Like, yeah, fire bells or something like that. I've reused metal antennas from things like that just because I can, right? At least try to get another use out of it, right? Because technically, those metal antennas, like, could be used as bells, and technically, because they're steel, it is in theory you could melt them back into steel again. Get the iron back out, the metal back out of it, right? So you could still do that. You're just giving it a little bit more life, right? So it's not just a single use of reusing. You can use them for multiple times, and you could still melt it back down and quote unquote recycle it. Yeah. Yeah. That too. Yeah, that too, Tuck. Just thinking about it. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's out there in space, right? I'm pretty sure those satellites or whatever are not all made of metal and such, right? I think this is why a lot of times they'll force that kind of kamikaze type of thing, where the satellites they'll force them to kind of last a little bit, a fuel that they have, right? Because there's just a certain lifetime for those satellites, right? Trying to remember. I didn't think I was gonna go into outer space on this, but like, what was it? Cassini. I watch a lot of space things too, right? What they did was, like, the last little bit is just like they force it to get burnt up in the atmosphere of the planet, of said planet or whatever around it, right? Because they don't want to contaminate or whatever the planet, right? I get that, right? But unfortunately, we got rovers out on Mars right now, right? For anyone that's curious about that. Yeah, I just said it like that. I know everyone has their curiosity about that, right? Did I just say that? Okay, yeah, I just said that. But yeah, just think about it like that, right? You know, I almost feel like I should just do a whole live stream of like space. Or whatever, or something like that. I could actually talk about that too. Like I said, I do watch these kind of things and understand them a little bit more, right? And but really, like I said, Mars has like probably garbage on it too, man-made stuff on it, because we sent rovers over there, for example, right? Or missions that kind of they fell through, hit the ground, but they didn't totally disintegrate or whatever, right? Or got incinerated by the atmosphere. So they touched down, but they're there. We just don't have access to them because the radio control is gone or whatever, right? They don't have control over it. It's probably there. It's probably covered with like sand now, but it's probably there, right? It will remain there until something happens. Or someone else decides to go over there with SpaceX. Yeah, I just said that. Yeah, I get that too, Tuck. I get that too, right? You know? Well, we'll see how that plays out, GP. We'll see that play out, right? I'm not saying, it's impossible. There is some technology that I've seen out there, but it's supposed to be this thing, this machine, that can recycle or reuse and recover a shirt and make it back into a shirt again. I think who's it from? H&M, right? But that's on a small scale with one shirt, and it took hours, if not days, for it. That's nowhere near profitable at all, let alone at scale, right? I mean, yeah, it's like a proof of concept, I guess, right? But it's still nowhere near anything we need to kind of reuse these materials back into a useful state, all right? Because unfortunately, that's going to be too expensive. So landfill is still going to be a cheaper option, for example, right? Once the landfill option is no longer not profitable, but an option or more expensive, whatever, or becomes more expensive, it's never going to change because because businesses are still there for profit. Just how it is, right? So they're always going to choose the least profitable thing. I mean, the most profitable thing, just because what it is, right? But if options are available that are more profitable, yeah, by design, capitalism will go towards that. But until then, it gets quote unquote downcycled. And yes, the Idaho Garden Girl, that was not supposed to be a rant. By the way, that's not supposed to be a rant. I'm just saying that. That's information you can find out there, right? There is videos out there, right? I'm not saying anything that's like not known already, right? There's videos out there. They show it, right? I'm just giving my own opinion about it. And yes, I'm holding back my tongue too. There's things I'm still holding back, all that, alright? I'm not even talking about some other things, right? Regardless if you believe it or not. I'm not even going to get into that part of it. Because this is not this type of stream. This stream is more about what is the way forward for our home. That's what it's called, alright? Like, I know it says the 5 R's in the title, but it's not supposed to be a rant. I'm trying not to make it a rant. I'm trying not to make it a rant, by the way. I'm trying not to. I'm trying as much as possible. I don't really actually want to rant about that. Because I could go on and on about this air stuff. Vandalizing artwork and all that stuff. No, I'm not going to give that the time of day. I've already talked about it before, where, in my opinion, that's not the way to go. They have their reasons for it. This blah 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 blah. Let's put this in the water. Blah blah blah. Let's put this in the water. Make the color of the water change. Blah blah blah. Let's put tomato sauce over this. Blah blah blah. Right? And stuff like that. Yeah. what I want to know is, like, what are you guys doing about it? Aside from that, right? Aside from quote-unquote activism stuff, right? You know? And I'm not gonna judge people because they eat meat. I'm not gonna, or whatever. Maybe you eat meat, but you garden too, right? And that's a step in the right direction, right? So I would understand that, for example, right? Maybe you gotta work for some fast food place, and yeah, I understand that, alright? But you still have to pay the rent so you don't become on the street. Yeah, I get that. I understand that. Maybe you don't like it, but, something along the lines of that. No, I haven't talked, by the way. I have not. As I keep going here because you guys are still in the chat here. And yes, I am chopping and dropping more. I'm trying to do what I can, right? I do what I can. I mean, like, you see me do reusing things, recovering things as much as possible. I mean, like, something, yeah, there's a certain place and time for new or whatever, right? But a lot of the stuff I have is secondhand. There is some things that are new, but there is some things that are secondhand. Secondhand, thrift, gifted to me, right? So I never bought them, or they were quote unquote new. So I'm not adding to the demand of said item, like a phone or whatever. The phone I'm using, I'll tell you guys straight up, the phone I'm using is probably older than what you guys are using. Yeah. Because people say their phone's old, my phone's probably older. I barely can get by with this in terms of the content, but it is what I have at the moment, right? It was secondhand or passed down to me. For example. And stuff like that. Among some other things at times, I make it go. I make it go. I mean, there's other things I can mention at times. I think what I'm gonna do here is actually like divert this from those type of things for a little bit and actually say what you can actually do. All right, let's go back to this reusing part because that's one of the focus things that I've done on the channel. And actually, if you look at some of the previous things I've done on the channel, even 7, 8, 9 years ago, some of the earliest videos I had were even about reusing stuff. Of all the things on the channel that kind of remained more consistent is the reusing aspect of the channel. Right? From me showing this to showing this and reusing this, right? As much as possible. And getting secondary uses out of it as much as possible. I mean, like... and different kind of items. Secondary uses for them as much as possible. And some things that are, quote unquote, some people might not touch. Just because the stereotypical view of said item. But I see the benefits of said item. For example. Okay. It's all good, man. Welcome back. I appreciate that. Because, like I said, it's just like some of these things I just do now, alright? Or are part of what I do. While other things I don't do anymore at times. Quote unquote, I'm not buying new clothes. Unless absolutely necessary. Alright? Because I can do or make do with what I have. Because either you're buying quality clothes or you made them go for a while. For example. Here's another R that I haven't even mentioned. Repair. Right? Which includes mending. Look at the videos I've shown on mending. Remember, I know Idaho Garden Girl remembers the socks I mended. It had a small hole. For example, right? Because a lot of the clothing things at times could be repaired. And nowadays with things, profit margins and all that stuff, the cost of clothing, the selling point of something like that. And you hear, oh, things like clothing's not made like it used to be. It's not like how it used to be, right? Well, cost of things. Everyone wants to get paid more, make more money, right? So what starts to happen? There's things like reinforcements on clothing that get cut out. Yeah, I know that sounded like a pun, but that was intentional, right? Which to cut on cost, which means that there's no reinforcements on certain points of articles of clothing, or they don't double stitch anymore or triple stitch it. It's only single stitch. They cut on cost because if they're manufacturing thousands, tens of thousands of articles of clothing or whatever, or a backpack, that's a lot of thread, and people or manpower or machine power or whatever to do that extra stitching in there, right? To cut on cost, which also means that it may be more vulnerable to breaking or falling apart within time, for example, right? Maybe not on the first or second use, but within time. So instead of lasting, let's say, 10 years, it's only going to last 2. Via regular use, for example, right? So hence things like repairing, being able to mend your clothing is not only a good skill, it might help you on your pocketbook too, right? So you don't have to buy a new thing. And let's just say it's your favorite shirt. It's nice to know if you like a shirt or whatever, pants or whatever, right? And there's just a small little rip, tear, whatever, right? Be able to repair that, bring it back to a useful state. Yeah, there's something good about that. And not only that, if you do it yourself, because sometimes you have to do it by hand, you're practicing that skill. So in terms of the preparedness part, yeah, that's a good skill too. I see, Tuck, yeah. Multiple bungee cables are the best. Yes, sewing is a good skill to develop. You bought a new pair of jeans. You had 4 pairs lasted 20 years. They make them weirdly shaped now. Yeah, okay. You've been doing repairs windows. Yeah. I remember you writing that on the side chat, Tuck, earlier in the week. Remember, I do pay attention. Even this had yeah, horrified, yeah. And of course, Tuck is saying, "Good to see you." It's good to see you too, Tuck and Iron Fire Horse again. But yeah, this is why I do these type of things. This to show it's not that difficult, and you know, and the repairing things or fixing up things, right? That kind of like stereotypical view of it at times, right? Because it's not shiny, it's not glittery, or it's not sharp, right? That kind of thing too, right? I mean, that could be a whole different stream on its own or video on its own, which I won't dive into really that much on this, because I'm trying to keep this on topic as much as possible within this realm. I've set boundaries to as much as possible. That's why I'm not trying to go on a tangent or go too far over to the one side. As much as possible. Because like I said, I'm not trying to rant on this stream. I'll give my opinion to a certain degree. I might hint it, but I don't want to rant about it. Because I want to take the high road on this and actually considering why to do it, one way or another. For example. Yeah. I've seen videos of that Iron Fire Horse, right? And like I said, they say, reinforcement spots are less. They don't reinforce these spots or whatever, right? They make the material thinner. All these things to cut on cost, right? Or they're trying to squeeze it into a certain price range, for example. Or something like that. I mean, let alone, paying a fair wage to people that do the work or whatever, right? That's a totally different thing, which I don't want to get into either, right? 'Cause that's a whole fast fashion thing, which I'm trying not to get into. I mean, you know, I get it, people gotta wear stuff. You know, price is a thing. I get that, right? But you gotta remember there are things at times that go along with something. You know, this T-shirt is $2, brand new. Well, something had to be cut out of it to make that price point available, right? Whatever it is, either to the people or to the environment or to cut on cost, whatever it is, or the quality, right? You know, this is why at times, because I've seen it at times, right? You know, a rip in a pair of pants or whatever, right? I've seen this, right? I mean, and what happens is because the people don't have the skill or they don't know a tailor or a seamstress, it gets tossed out. I've seen that at least 3 times from 3 different people that I know. Surprisingly, they were all guys, but PJ pajamas, a shirt, and pants or jeans. Two of those items I've tried to reuse. Actually, the jeans I actually made into chart cloth. Right. The shirt, technically I still have, but it's 100% gone, so technically I could still do something with it. Because it was actually clean. Because there's a seam, it was ripped down the seam. Or pretty close to the seam line along, like, right underneath the armpit area, so. I don't know if I'm gonna repair that and try to give it back to my friend. I don't know, we'll see. Because I don't know if they're gonna take it back. You know? I don't want to spend all that time or fret or whatever just to, oh, I don't want it anymore, Seer. Alright. Because I gotta make sure that it fits them. What you say in there? Even though it's a small sum size, I make them for other. Yeah, okay, yeah. You make them into rigs when they get too old to repair. Yeah, yeah. I said that too before too, where 100% con shirt or jeans or whatever. Right. Next thing I would do is make it into a rig, reuse it like that. And the last option I would do is make it for a floor or something like that. And then at the end of that, make it into Charkov just because it's 100% con. For example, right? But it's very hard to go back. So it's going to be kind of downcycled or a single type of single use reusing, as I call it now. Because once it's in that char cloth, you're not getting back a rag. Right? Once you cut it up into rags, unless you sew it back together, you're not getting back a shirt again, right? So pretty much it's downcycled to a certain degree, right? I mean, like, even in the preparedness community back in 2020 said, you know, and a lot of people said, right, you know, the TP heist, as I call it, right? A lot of other people were just saying, you know, why spend $30 on that 6-pack of rolls, right, for what it was, right? If absolutely necessary, go reuse a shirt, right? If absolutely necessary, right? I mean, who actually does that? But as an option, right? In terms of, like, what it is. You know? Let's see. Yeah, I get that. You haven't made charcoal before on a fire horse? Well, next time you have an open campfire or something like that, try it out. Just need a tin. Make sure there's a gap in it or whatever to let the smoke out. And basically, once it stops smoking, the hole out of the tin, like an Altoids tin or whatever, right? It's good. Because once it turns black, it'll become a source of fairly pure carbon that can take a spark, an open flame, or solar ignition, like that. That's basically in a nutshell. I haven't made charcoal in a little bit because I didn't have a campfire the last time it was held. Yes. just have a sip of coffee here. Like I said, I could actually probably talk about this for like hours and hours. Because remember, this is kind of the stuff that I think about all the time anyways. The only difference is I'm communicating it a lot more. I mean, if I was talking to someone on backstage or whatever in a private room, and we were talking about this, I probably could go on and on. They'll be like, CR, yes? I gotta go to bed, man. Even when I was younger, right? I've just kind of embraced it a little bit more at times, right? And like I said, I still got plastic going around too or whatever, right? I'm not 100%, right? I'm not the all my garbage fits into one small glass jar kind of person, right? Because I also realize, by design of the society at times, it's hard to avoid something like plastic, for example, right? I mean, even like the oxygen absorbers out there that the preparedness community uses, even the Mylar blankets, even the Mylar for food preserving, right? Or there's a degree of plastic in there. Now, obviously, you're using it for a certain specific reason, right? Yeah, you're using plastic to preserve food. Okay, so it's a trade-off on that, right? The Mylar space blankets. For anyone that doesn't know, Mylar space blankets, right? Those reusable astronaut blankets, whatever, reflective blankets, right? They have aluminum. It's aluminum coated onto plastic. That is what it is. There's other ones that are more like a term, but generally it's more or less the same. It's aluminum coated plastic. That's why it's shiny on one side and stuff like that. If you were going to go into something like that, and then try to buy a better quality one whenever possible. Some of the thinner ones, the cheaper ones that are thinner, right, they're going to rip easier. They're going to be louder too. I've actually have one of those space blankets, a little bit thicker, from one of the other companies, right? It's a little bit thicker, a little bit more durable. I've actually worn down some parts of the aluminum coating on it. Like, I can actually see through it. It's not like I haven't made a hole for it, but I've actually worn down the aluminum side on parts of it just because I've used it for so much. But I'm still using it, right? So it's not like a disposable thing to a certain degree. So I'm still able to reuse it again and again, not just one time, for example. Me too, yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's a way of life for me, yeah. It is. Yeah, they use plastic on everything now. Even construction barriers, natural wall, yeah. Alright? And stuff like that. I mean, look at the cameras, security cameras, our phones, the battery banks that we use, right? Right? There's there's metals inside, lithium batteries and stuff like that, right? I mean, that would be another thing I could talk about, but there's still the plastic outer shell. It's because it reduces weight in comparison to steel or whatever, right? That's why, because, like, something like a drill, some of these used to be made of more metal. The reason that not only plastic was used is to cut down on cost, but on weight too, all right? Because if you think about it, if it weighs less, if you're shipping 10,000, 1,000 of these, right, that's less fuel you have to use to transport, send 10,000 of these to a store or whatever, right? Which means that's less cost on the production side, or the producer, for example, right? If that makes any sense. Because back early on when some of these tools like a drill were prototyped or whatever, they were much bigger, made of metal, much more heavy. Not heavy duty, but heavy in terms of weight. Nowadays, we got drills that fit in our hands, easily most people can carry it, right? One-handed and all that stuff, because they've reduced certain parts down to plastic, and some of the more what's it called? Certain parts are still made of metal, like the gears and this and stuff like that, right? But a lot of the stuff like the trigger and the housing, it's all plastic now, right? It's all, like there's absolutely no way you'd be able to get away from plastic in terms of tools like that, for example, right? You know, unless you go really old school if you want, right? You know, I got one of those egg beat type of drills, right? It's much older, right? There is no plastic on it. There's wood and metal. That's it, right? But that's what it is, right? But that's much older. You know, this was made. It was probably something back in the 60s or 70s, right? Before that kind of plastic injected molding and all that stuff took over to cut down the cost and the weight. And like I said, if weight's cut down, for example, or the size, or it could be more compact, you can ship more in one vehicle or in a van or in a truck, for example, less cost, less fuel used to, you know, ship it, I mean, transport it across the country or whatever, or to whatever, right? Yeah, weight and stuff like that, yeah. Trying to get better, higher quality stuff whenever possible, you know, when possible, right? Longevity, right? You know, unfortunately, price is a big factor on a lot of things. It's just the way it is. Yeah, power tools were almost entirely metal. Yeah, exceptions would be power cord, sheaves, and bushings. Yeah, exactly, right. Because I took a look at that because I've been watching like documentaries in history about stuff like this and understanding it a little bit more. Like even before this stream, a long time ago, right? So like, I've actually kind of researched this out and just be like, oh, okay, and just to understand it a little bit better, right? I'm like, and there's reasons why for it, right? Cut on cost, cut down the weight, which in turn can reduce the production side cost, which in turn reduces the price point, right? So they can fit it into this certain price point, or it becomes more portable, for example, now, right? Stuff like that. What's the time? All right. I think I will go until only till this top of this hour here. I don't think I'm gonna go longer, cause I feel like I'm actually like not. It's not that I don't want to talk about this. It's because I probably should actually do stuff. I should be responsible, right? I should be responsible and realize that I better not slide the day away with live streaming. Even I swear I could probably talk about this for a long period of time. I know I could talk about this for a long period of time. I mean, I didn't even get into some other stuff yet. And other stuff. And other stuff. And other stuff. And other stuff. But I wanted to make sure the point of this stream was about the 5 R's. And not only that, what are we doing? What are we doing? What is the way forward for our home? Right? And relate this back into my P.R.E.P streams, right? And relate this back into the preparedness and resource as a whole, right? I mean, I'm holding a piece of metal right here. Yep. Here's a piece of plastic that has metal inside. Yep. Here's a scissors that has metal, but it has plastic handles because it's not full tang. You know, here's a reusable coffee filter. Well, it's got plastic, right? I got another tea thing. Oh yeah, this is metal right here, right? So, you know, it's hard to avoid. I mean, I got other options, right? If absolutely necessary, right? Here, I got a wooden spatula right here. Well, I can look in my other drawer. Here's a plastic one, right? Oh, but here's a full metal one with wood handle, right? So like I got the stuff hanging around. Here's a glass bottle right here. Well, I got a plastic spray bottle, for example, right? You know. And a lot of the stuff at times,
It doesn't even matter what it's made out of, although usually it's plastic that I see, but I see it out there, alright? People lingering, tossing it. To the point, I've actually seen once, if not more times, but recently, I saw a microwave by a tree. Yeah, I saw a microwave by a tree. And remember, that there's absolutely no way the wind or the water brought that there. I mean, I think in time it got removed. I don't know, maybe some scrapper or whatever took it to scrap it or whatever, right? Hopefully it went like that, you know? If not, then it probably got picked up from whatever and unfortunately got landfilled. But hopefully it got scrapped from the scrapping community out there, right? I'll accept that just because that response, just because it's got zero in it. But it's one of those things that I try not to do. I mean, I got something right here that's made of plastic. I'm reusing this, by the way. I'm actually reusing this just because there's a certain characteristic of it that I'm trying out. I'm trying it out, and I've been reusing it since I helped someone else out. Because actually, they used up the primary resource of it. I'm just using it for a different reason. For a similar characteristic, I'm using it, and actually I'm kind of glad I decided to because it's been useful. Yes, I'll let you guys hear this. Yeah, yeah. I've been using it, all right. And yes, you know what's funny, and the thing is, it is number 2 HDP, high density polyethylene, right? This is technically 1 and 2 for plastics are actually the most common, highest quality of plastic available that gets recycled. And yes, most people would have been like, oh yeah, just recycle it. No, I'm going to reuse this first. For a similar reason. I could still, because I didn't change it. I didn't melt it. I didn't paint over it. I didn't, put crafts and paint over the plastic. Because it still looks exactly the same how it originally looked, right? I can still technically recycle it. So this is not a thing I'm reusing before recycling. Think about this. There's a certain reason why these 5 R's and 6 or whatever are in a certain order. There's a certain reason. Hence, I'm reusing this before recycling it, for example, right? Or repairing it before reusing, or repairing it before recycling it. Or reusing or repairing something before recovering the resource, or what some people call as rot. Although I don't like the word rot. I like the word, I learned it as recovered, not as rot. But pretty much like compost or whatever, right? Or let it degrade in nature, quote unquote, like a banana peel or whatever, right? Something along the lines of. You have scrappers that go ugly, take microwaves. Yeah, I see that. Yeah, I know, I get it. Really? That's awesome, Iron Farmers. And the thing is, you brought that back into the useful state, right? Because a lot of the time, it's that people want the newest thing or it's obsolete, right? But if you can get it to work or whatever, right? And then, I mean, that's another thing. I mean, I probably could go for another, 5 hours talking about that at times, right? But I'm trying to make this kind of, to the point. And yes, I am using it. I didn't even take the label off, And I like this. It's been useful for me. It was the first time I tried something like that. I was just like, oh yeah, right? I mean, I'm reusing something right here because I could have wiped something down, right? I'm actually wiping something. Actually, I'm wiping the stove because I'm actually gonna be making coffee. By the way, yes, I'm making coffee in a little bit here. I'm just wiping something down real fast here, right? Because, I'm not gonna per se judge you if you use paper towel. There may be a time or reason for it, right? There is a time or reason, I guess, right?
But what I will say is, you know, try to use the resource efficiently at least. So at least if you do have to use something like that, try to use it as efficiently as possible. For fill on the counter with paper towel. And you know it was just water you spilled, right? Or coffee. You know, it's totally different if it's something else, but I mean, like using paper towel to wipe water or coffee, that's probably better to use a rag. I'm just saying, in my opinion, about something like that, right? But maybe it's like because you're cleaning something that's very, very messy. Okay, maybe I might understand that to a certain degree. But then again, maybe you have something that you can use, for example, that's extremely dirty, that was a rag, that was cotton. Use that, right? And kind of save the paper towel for later down the road when absolutely necessary for it, right? You know, it's in the same way that I was saying about the paper plates, disposable cutlery, and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong. I do have some. I haven't bought any. These are all just from previous times I did stuff or whatever. Or, you know, because I was with people or whatever, and it came with a straw, fork, whatever, right? And I didn't use it at that time. Because it came with a spoon and a fork. Well, I only used the spoon. So, and I'm not just going to waste the fork. Because it's already there. If it's already on the table or your waitress already brought it to you, they cannot take it back. Like a napkin or... Because they can't. Because they have to reset the table with fresh stuff. It's just the way it is, right? So, unless you refuse it in the first place by saying, oh, don't bring me a napkin. They're not bringing you a napkin, for example, or something like that, right? And if it's already on the table, you know, sometimes I'll just pick it up and put it in my pocket and I'll reuse that said napkin for later on, right? Or, like I've done before where I just rip half the napkin because that's all I need. That half, I'll reuse that, well, not reuse it, but I'll actually use it for something else, right? Get another use out of it. And versus, leaving it on the table because, like I said, at a restaurant or whatever, right, all that stuff has to be thrown just because the health and safety kind of thing, you know, that kind of thing that happens, right? They gotta reset the table, right? They gotta reset the table. Yeah, okay, yeah, I get that. Greasy stuff, yeah. There's a certain reason for it, right? Making it a reasonable size to be receptacle, and then, if possible, save my trash bags, yeah. Yeah. The same people that complain about, yeah, that kind of thing, yeah, and all that stuff. Yeah, I get it. I mean, there may be a certain reason for it, right, or whatever, but... I mean, I can go 2 hours talking about that just alone. Moving to cloth or paper towels. At the moment, there's no paper towels in my house. Yeah, okay, I get it. Use them more when camping because I don't have the laundry. Yeah, okay, I can understand that to a certain degree, right? I can understand that to a certain degree, right? Like I said, I'm not trying to judge anyone or demonize anyone for doing it or for using it, right? What I'm saying is, what is the reasoning for it? And like I said, maybe, okay, greasy, okay, you know, even iron farmers, I can understand that. But, you know, if you're starting to use paper towel to, like, pick up water because you spilled some water or a little bit of coffee on the table, I don't know about that. That seems more like a waste for what it is, right? For what it is. Especially if you just used it literally to pick up, like, water and you tossed it right away. For what it is. For what it is. In my opinion about something like that. In my opinion about something like that. Now, let's see. Yeah, I get that. There's a certain reasoning for it. Yeah, I get that. I can understand it. You don't want to track certain things. I get that. Yeah, that's silly in my mind, too. Yeah. There's a... More or less, right? More or less. You know? Almost to the point now I have a slight alternative to paper towel when you don't want to use a rag. I've been working on this, and it's just a byproduct of something else. I've shown this before, by the way. I've shown this before in the peanut butter, me cleaning out the peanut butter jar, for example, right? I didn't want to use a rag for that because it's kind of hard to remove peanut butter that's on a rag, right? But I wanted to clean out the jar because I wanted to reuse it. Hence, people saw me reuse. I started to do this a lot more now. It's sitting on the side. I have these labels from other things just because, it might have been on a metal bottle or whatever, but there was still a plastic label or a paper label, right? Yes, I'll reuse the paper as a note to draw notes, like my ideas or whatever, right? But sometimes I'll actually reuse it for reasons like that, right? Something greasy or something like that. Just so, hey, I don't even need to dip into paper towel. And don't get me wrong, I got a roll. I rarely, if barely use it. There's only extremely small reasons why I would use it. For example, right? Maybe I'm making bacon or something like that. Bacon. Man, I want bacon now. But yeah, something like that, that's pretty much it. Everything else, I'll be like, I'll find another way. Because it's not, I'm using the paper towel for food. It's directly touching food, right? And I don't want to use something else, like a rag or something like that, right? So I'm trying to find different ways of using it so I don't actually have to dip into that kind of stuff. I got it just in case I gotta dip into it. Or whatever, right? Water is in short supply, or I gotta ration water. Extremely, a lot more, right? Because, like I said, understanding that, right, there may be a certain time. And this is why I have both options available. However, day to day, I'm using reusable options whenever possible. These kind of single use, I only have them as a last resort or first. I have a specific reason why I'm using it this time, right? And I'd rather not, and I don't use it day to day. Don't get me wrong, I do not use paper towel day to day. Like, I got a roll that probably only has like one sheet removed. Because I had to use it because I was making bacon. That's it. I'm not, oh, hey, I spilled some coffee on the table and then grab some paper towel, right? Because if you think about it, this whole, like, people don't say, hey, can you grab me a rag? Now it's like, grab me a paper towel. Think about the younger generation, for example. I hear that all the time. I don't hear them say rag or cloth, right? Older people, I hear them saying. The younger people, unless otherwise, they'll say paper towel, all right? And remember, that's a consumable, all right? Consumable, because within time, you will wear down that resource. Because you're consuming it, right? Versus something that's reusable. Now, a rag you have to wash out. Unlike a paper towel, and and I get the whole hygienic thing or whatever, right? I get it to a certain point. But, I mean, like, if it's coffee on the table, there's some sugar. You know what's on the table. It's not like it's like grease or something like that, right? The grid's not down. You have access to water. You can just wash out a rag, right? For example, right? For example. Wow, you guys really have a lot to say here. Maybe I will go longer. Perhaps I will go longer. Just because I got these. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, I could see that too. Iron farmers. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. Yeah, okay, I can understand that. Use burn spoon and get us less resort. Well, maybe. Maybe Iron Fire Horse. Portsmouth favorite on top of a regular plate. It's easy to clean up. Yeah, okay, I get it to a certain point too. Yeah. If you're in the mood for sweet and maple syrup, yeah. A jar of honey from her son is. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. That's cool, Iron Fire Force. Well, yeah, I know that, Tug. And I don't girls like I reuse paper towels. I mean, like I said, it depends what I'm doing, what was on it, right? Grease is one thing. Grease is absolutely one thing, right? You know, but if it's water, soap, I'll try to kind of do something else with it. At least if I can, or get another use out of it, right? For example, right? You know, kind of, it's almost like downcycling. I'm trying to downcycle or find the kind of next kind of use I can get out of it because I can't use it for primary use anymore, and I can't use it for something else because it's way too dirty, but it's not too dirty for something else. For example, like for example, if absolutely there's no rag or whatever, and people are actually using paper towel to wipe water or coffee, right? I'd be like, you know, especially if there was no grease on it, I'd be like, before you toss it out, wipe the sink. Wipe the sink with it, right? You know, you already knew it only had water or coffee, right? Wipe the sink because your sink's still dirty because, you know, and stuff like that because of things in the sink. That's something I would do first. Then toss it out, alright? So you get at least one more single-use reuse in there. One more time, right? If that makes any sense. I've done this before, too, where I'm just like, well, my sink's dirty because I have something in the sink because I've been cleaning dishes or whatever, right? So I'm just wiping around the drain with something. For example, let's just say if it was paper towel. But this paper towel was used for something else even before that. Like, let's say in this case, in this example would be coffee, water, something like that, right? Nothing greasy. I mean, I don't think I would do it like that. I don't want to spread the grease around like that. That I can understand, right? I don't want to spread grease around, right? Because it's just adding work to it, right? Because then the grease gets in the sink, and that's not what I want here, right? But what I'm saying is like grabbing paper towel to clean coffee on the table with sugar, I don't know, it just seems like a big waste to me for what it is. Especially if it's like you're grabbing like 2 sheets. 2 sheets, you know. Oh, yeah, these are supposed to be really good. You know, they're very absorbent. Oh, yeah. That's why you're still using 2 sheets every single time, right? You know what I mean? Because, let's face it, there's a cost in that. Right? And look what happened when people during back in 2020, right? It's not just the TV, it's the paper towel thing, right? You know? I still had rags. I was still using, I was just doing the exact same thing. Because I had access to, you know, things like soap and water, for example, right? You know, there is like I said, there is a time and a place for paper towel or TP and stuff like that, right? I try not to use paper towel whenever I can. Whenever possible, right? You know, as much as possible. Oh, Tuck. I've used absolutely ruined old screwdriver. Well, yeah. No, I don't, Tuck. I see that comment there. No, I don't. Hey, it's Anfield Road and Layout. How's it going, Lee? How's it going, man? I appreciate your comment on my last video. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that last video, yes. Working with Mother Nature, right? But yeah, I mean, okay? Here's the thing to keep in mind. I guess leader in here, Anfield Road Layout. He does train things, right? Look at these things like not paper, but wooden utensils. A wooden spoon or fork, right? You know, someone gets you takeout, you don't want to waste the food. Okay, I get that, right? Sometimes I will actually reuse these wooden utensils for something else. For example, if you think about this, I know Lee, you do a lot of modeling and stuff like that. Maybe you can handle paint, right? So instead of you waste, you know, you ate the food with said utensil, wooden utensil, and it's still not that bad for what it is, right? You take the handle in, you break off the fork or spoon in, use the handle handle end, handle end of it, and use that to use with paint, because you realize the paint is automatically done stain it, for example, right? And you don't want to use, and maybe you don't want to wash your brush or whatever, right? For example, or you're smearing something that's kind of really dirty. Well, not dirty, but with stain or something like that. Or mixing some paint or something like that. Think about it like that, right? Now, also, you won't be able to compost it or reuse it after the fact because it's got paint, but you still have to use this because you still have to paint something or stir the paint. You still have to do that action. Why not reuse something like that? There's an example right there. That's something I just like literally came to mind, just because he dropped in. You do airbrush too? Oh, okay. Cool. But yeah, just something to consider, right? You know, I mean, I actually have a fork outside right now. It's a wooden fork. It's sitting outside in the garden, standing up. By the way, right? I actually used it as a marker. Like, think about it like that. These wooden utensils, usually the handle is, yeah, the spoon, the fork end is gonna be dirty. Yeah, I get that, greasy, whatever, I get that, right? But usually the handle, you just handled it with your hands, right? Write something on that, use it as a marker in your garden if you want to do something like that, or maybe to support up a plant while it's still young, right? Let's say a tomato plant while it's still young, right? To kind of support it along, right? I mean, I've done that before. You know, I'll take two to make a crisscross to support up the leaves off a very small tomato plant, so the leaves aren't touching the ground, right? Avoid that kind of blight thing that might happen from the transmission from the soil to the ground, from the soil to the leaves because of the rain or watering, for example. I've done that before. You know, just something to keep in mind, right? You know, and taking a look at the resources out there as much as possible. That's you used chopsticks, dowels, scissors, and stirring paint and epoxy. Yeah, something exactly. That's the exact same thing I'm kind of talking about, right? Because why use something per se new for something like that, like paint or epoxy, for example, just to do that once. Oops. Just to do that once, and you know you're doing it once, right? Because as soon as you use it, it's not gonna get paint on it. It's not gonna get dirty instantly, anyways, right? You know, it's just like, I always thinking to myself, it's just like, if I get a wipe, let's say I spilled a little bit of grease on the table, right? I don't want to use a rag because I know I have to wash it out after, wash the grease out. I don't want to use paper towel because that'd just be a waste of paper towel, like, even if I cut it, right? So I'll just use a sheet of paper, scrap piece of paper, a label or something, and wipe that said little spot of grease and use that, for example, because you know what I mean, like that kind of thing. I've done this before too, because that label, for some whatever reason, you know, it's got plastic on one side or whatever, but so it's not going to be recyclable because they're not to be able to separate it at the recycling facility, and it's too small or whatever, right? And you know, I got enough sheets of scrap paper or whatever to write on, so I'm like, oh, you know what? I'll do it like that. Just like the peanut butter example that I've shown 2 years ago. Back in January or whatever, or February of 2022, if I remember right. If it wasn't 2022, it was early 2023. I'm trying to remember. But yeah, something like that. Because I've shown it in that video where I reused the label on the peanut butter container to actually clean the peanut butter container. Instead of grabbing something like a rag, like I said, because as soon as I get peanut butter on that rag, it's going to be a hassle. I'll have to use a lot of water to remove it, right? It just, for what it is, I was like, yeah, I think I'll do it this way. But instead of grabbing something like paper towel, I'll use a label. You have a nice grip for over 3 years old, you know, the kind with one hand on a steel blade. The wood finally gave way where it meets the metal. Can't find anyone to fix it. Well, if you could bring that back, Iron Force, that'd be awesome, right? Just imagine if you, after 3 years, it finally broke and then you repair it. Or whatever. And if you can or whatever, try to reuse the components of it. Alright? I don't know what it looks like or whatever, you know, it depends, right? Because if you can get another use for something that you don't have to get something new for it or use something new for it, it may save you money in the long run, too. Because sometimes reusing or repairing actually does save you money. Especially if it's like an article of clothing that you really like. A pair of pants or whatever, right? Slacks, something like, landfill it or whatever, right? You're able to, quote unquote, reuse it or repair it. And this is before anything like bringing it to a charity shop or trying to sell it, right? Oh, okay, you used it in the blade for... Oh, okay, that's cool, that's cool. That's very cool, Iron Fibers. Yeah. As much as possible. I mean... Look at... I've shown this video already, but... Well, I made something because I actually saw it online. I've seen people doing it, and I just happen to have the resource of it. A broken handle, a broken broom with the bristles, right? I made it into something to wipe my feet, the snow, the mud off of me. I reused the screw, screwed it into a piece of board. I saw videos on it. I'm like, and I had the resource laying around, and then like I got a broken broom. Like I reused the handle part, but it wouldn't fit into the bristle with the broom part of it, right? I reused that as something else. So I gave it another life out of it. It's been 3 years since I've had it now, right? It keeps helping me. A slightly different use, right? I've been telling people that, right? You know, and just like, just to keep that in mind, just in case you happen to have that, right? Another secondary use for something like that. And that's kind of like what I've been trying to do more and more on the channel, right? And a lot of times I'll actually watch content like that. I'll actually be like, you know, when are people actually reusing or making from this quote-unquote scrap stuff or not ideal or trash stuff? I'm using a bunch of air quotes you guys can't see, by the way. Well, bring your own stuff into it, you know? I appreciate your input. Oh, you're going to the hardware store, that is, oh, and then, yeah. It's inbound, yeah, okay. Yeah, you have value, you like it, right? So you want to bring that back and repair it. I really hope you can do something to bring it back into a useful state, Iron Fire Horse. That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. Alright? Because I know, like... And I've seen this before time and time again, right? A simple repair. And, you know, sometimes the repairs are... if you have the right tools. I think that goes hand in hand. Repairing and tools go hand in hand. It's hard to repair stuff without tools. That is absolutely true. You can't sew something without the tools, like a sewing needle. You can't repair something like whatever because you don't have a screwdriver that fits inside to unscrew it, to disassemble it so you can reattach something that broke away. For example, I've done that before, you know. Although I kind of ruined it after a year or two after, but still, it still works. Just its bristle spinning part doesn't, because it's something else I did. But you know, because if no one did anything to it, it would have been destined for landfill, or eventually the scrappers might have gone to it, right? Or they would have scrapped the copper out of it, the metals out of it, and stuff like that, right? But the plastic would still have been landfilled out. I think you need some blacksmith. Well, you know what? See what you can do, right? I mean, yeah, okay. Time around, right? You gotta use and more. Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree with that too. Iron Fire Horse. Things have changed over time. Things have definitely changed over time for what it is, right? Like I said, to cut on costs, right? To be more competitive on the price, to make profit, right? Some things are cut out, right? Where it's less about longevity and more about buy another one in like 3 years or something like that, right? Where it becomes obsolete later on. And yes, the leaderboard that's tossed around around with people. Okay, I know I've said this probably like the last like 2 hours I've been saying this. Okay, I will absolutely this time. Unless for some reason I get this influx of like 30 people, we'll end the stream in like 15 minutes. Because I really. And besides, I don't want Iron Fire Horse procrastinating anymore. I'm sorry. No, because I feel like I'm procrastinating. But I think it's because it's actually opening my mind to other things. I think one of the last things I'll kind of say is, and I've said this before, I've actually, well, I haven't really shown it, but there's videos out there on the crafting community where I've seen people do this to a certain degree. And I've done this too. Cardboard is recyclable. Yes, we all know cardboard's recyclable. You can recover it, put it in the garden, all the stuff, right? One of the things I started to do, because cardboard is very abundant too, right? Cardboard boxes, and all that stuff that we get, packages and stuff like that, online packaging and stuff like that, right? Instead of thinking, oh, where the first option is recycling it, or composting, or recovering that resource of it, use it. I've been reusing boxes for a lot of things lately. Like, I was a sub-organizer, right? Yes, you could go buy plastic bins or whatever at some place or whatever, right? But I'm gonna reuse these boxes first. So I don't even actually have to buy, quote-unquote, these plastic containers, which, is what it is, right? But another thing is, as a tip, remember, you can actually nest boxes within boxes. Or if it's exactly two of the exact same boxes, like kind of overlap, like a shoebox or whatever, the bigger one, you can cut it into into quarters, and nest it inside, so where the quarters on the outside become the center of the inside box, if that makes any sense. I've done that before too. And I actually did it the other day too, where I reused some boxes to reorganize the spot that I had. All right, because I was like, I don't know if I could buy something. It might not even work that well, but I'll try it with some a cardboard version of it first. Reuse it, and the thing is, it is not painted. I didn't mark it up with a Sharpie or anything like that. So technically, later on down the road, I can still recycle it. Still put it out there in the garden if I want to compost or whatever, right? Chop and drop it back in. Right? So again, this comes back to, I'm going to reuse it first. So, This is why I'm always thinking reusing whenever possible, right? Whenever possible. And not just kind of, jump to recycling, for example, right? Shawnee's here? She's. Welcome. I didn't realize. We're talking about boxes? I didn't realize she was here. Well, maybe I'll go a little bit longer. Shawnee's here? I didn't realize she was here. Until I started taking a look, and it's like, all I see is like, oh, hi there! Exclamation mark. You build with card, yeah. We're talking about boxes? Well, let's just bring that up as an example, Shawnee. Use old cardboard box to build kits with, or something. Yeah. I'm assuming that means build. It says build. Kits. Build, yeah. Yeah, I know you'll be live later, Shawnee. That's why I make. Okay, you know what? I will. Okay, Shawnee. And just because my count is going up, I know I said the bottom of the hour. It's great. It's my stream. I'll go to the top of the hour. But absolutely, I will stop at the top of the hour because I feel like I didn't actually do anything. Like, I enjoyed the live streams. I'm even enjoying, like, communicating this about the 5 R's and reusing stuff whenever possible, right? But I gotta remember to actually, like, be responsible with that kind of R too. And amongst some other things, like chopping and dropping the stuff outside. Because it's actually sitting on my table right now. Like, I showed it earlier. I'm not gonna show it again. Alright? I'm shaking it. What I'm reusing. Come on. I gotta be clear about that. Yes, you'll be live in, like, what, 4 hours from now, Shawnee? Give or take. I will try to be there. I'll make some time. I might have to stream hop again, like usual. You have all kinds of packaging and other stuff you save. Whenever I have something to do, I just go for it and find something that works, yeah. You've done that before with some brand moving boxes. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's cool, right? And I know people out there that do a lot of swamps or giveaways or, they're picking up a lot of Amazon online packaging stuff, right? They'll reuse it for something else, right? Or they have to send something else out, they'll reuse the box. And then, that's a good way of doing it, right? Why purchase a new box if you don't have to in that scenario, right? Especially if you find a box that you can reuse that's perfect size for it. Like it was always meant to be, right? You might not even be able to buy something that actually is exactly the same size as that box that you reused. And to me, that makes more sense, in my opinion. You hate that you can't get boxes from the liquor store anymore? Yeah. Yeah, well, I used to work at a liquor store, so, yeah, I remember people used to ask that kind of stuff. I didn't realize that was a thing, though. Well, because I know people looking for moving boxes, right, and stuff like that nowadays. I don't know how it is nowadays. I've been at that loop for a little bit, right, so. Didn't used to have plastic boxes. Your mom and you would cover boxes with wallpaper scraps to customize them. Yeah, I've seen that before from someone else. Idaho Garden, yeah. You use contact paper, gift wrap, paper to cover the box. Wow, you still have some of them too? Wow. Well, I guess, technically if it doesn't get wet or whatever, it may fade a bit, but technically it's still usable, I guess, right? That's very interesting, Idaho Garden Girl. Wow. Yeah, you might have to go over and look. Yeah, I get it. Even, like, I have this, I'm not going to show you, but you'll just have to take my word for it. But, like, I have this kind of notebook, right? It's not Rain on the Rain or waterproof paper or anything like that. It's a different one that I use, right? So it's got standard paper on it. something you might get at dollar store or whatever, right? I actually got water on it when I was out away at a friend's place, right? So one of the things I started to do was some of these quote unquote stickers from labeling, right? You know, some of these containers that have labels that are sticky. I've actually reused the labels and I stuck them onto the label, into the label. I stuck the labels onto the cover of the paper or cardboard of this notebook. Just so if water gets onto it, it's not gonna like soak into the paper. Because actually, that's what actually happened, and I started doing like that. And actually, there's another thing I actually started to do too. You know, it just I would show you it, but that explains it all right there. And technically, the label has CR on it. By the way, yes, I'm like yes. I made sure I put it on the front of it, right? But it's just something I have, right? And it's just like, and the thing is, it's it's customized, and I found a way to reuse it in a certain way, right? In a certain way to make it more functional. I shouldn't say functional, but more, well, for lack of a word, functional, right? Because I saw that problem with it, right? So it's something to keep in mind. Basically, yeah. So it's just something I kept in mind. Like I said. Did I miss something in there? Oh, wine boxes. Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, it's just like people that reuse, let's say, a palette to make something, or to make something out of, or kind of quote unquote convert, yes, with a CR in it, something. Not quite, maybe upcycling. I guess upcycling is converting it as a way of reusing it, right? And upcycling something. Not necessarily downcycling, alright, but upcycling something, right? Something on par with something. Not downcycling, like taking bottles and shredding them and making it into a shirt, right? That's more downcycling, or using shredded plastic bottles to make insulation. That's downcycling. But, you know, doing something like taking an old cupboard or whatever, right, and upcycling it into some sort of organizer or a box that you can use for organization, for example. That'd be more consider. I would consider us upcycling, because you're more or less getting the same thing out of it. It's slightly different, right? Downcycling a cupboard would be like, you know, you're using it as like a platform on something to write on, right? That would be more like downcycling to a certain degree, or, you know, for example. Let's see here. Okay. Making sure I didn't miss anything there. Let's see. Is there anything else I wanted to say here? Alright. uh, you know, I'll show you guys something. Hold on. Technically, I did show it the other day. I'll show it again. Sorry, it rolls, so I gotta make sure it doesn't fall off my teeth. Okay. See? Alright. Ooh. Glass container that had something whatever in here, and now I'm putting my sunflower seeds in here. They're not roasted, they're just dry. And yes, I made sure they were dry. Alright? Reusing something. Alright? You know? It may not be quote unquote fancy. Okay? I've removed the label for the most part. Yeah. Except for this gold piece right there. I could really remove that if I was kind of stingy about that, but whatever. I didn't realize there was something on there. Let's see, you could see that. That must be from the manufacturer. Right? I'd show you the lid, but you know, it is what it is. For example, right? Oh, come on. Actually, I'm just gonna leave this on the screen like this. Come on, reconnect. Yeah, I know. It happened again. I'm sorry about that. I thought I was in control of it, right? I didn't, because I actually had the device in my hand, and next thing I know, it's just like overheating. I'm like literally, I just popped it in the fridge real quick, and it just came back. I was like, so it's just one of these things I need to be aware of. Man, I should have just streamed it outside. At least, right? At least it wouldn't overheat in the cold. I just have to keep it warm. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, maybe I should have ended the stream at the bottom, or like I said. In hindsight, right? In hindsight, I was just like, and then of course now I can't see the rest of the chat because it disappeared on me. I just didn't like. Yeah, it must. I don't know why. These last two streams I've had this issue. Like, look, no word of a lie. Like, look at this. I'm gonna show you guys this right here. This, I took a screenshot of it. Look. See, look. Look at that. Yeah. See? I took a screenshot of it too, by the way. So that, no word of a lie, that's what actually happened. I'm actually surprised I actually was able to get a screenshot of that. Right? So it's just one of those things. Okay, iron fires. So, you know, right now, it's sitting on top of my sink. I'm using the metal on top of my sink as a heat sink. Maybe, you know what? Maybe that's what I should consider now. Maybe I should reuse the metal and make a heat sink, right? Maybe you know, maybe I'll find one of those heat sinks from like not from a hard drive, but from like a video card or from a processor from a computer, and use that as a heat sink. That's something I might keep in mind right now, and I will bring something back on the screen here. I'll bring this back on the screen. I'll just keep it smaller. I didn't think... See, it said that I had issues with transmitting in terms of connection, but I didn't think I had... because my FPS was at 2930 all the time. What's up, Niz, man? I see you in there. Just turn your AC on. Dude, I could just walk outside, Tug. Like, literally, guys, I could just walk outside. And the thing is, my phone, I didn't actually have my phone plugged in at that time, right? So it wasn't from that. It was literally, I was just like, what? Yeah. Well, I guess it's just one of those things I'm starting to realize more and more. Because I haven't streamed for this long with it before. Well, the last time, it was like an hour in. And then that was on my... Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I will actually go to the top. I might try to go to the top tower. There is absolutely no way I'm going past the top tower. Because I think it's one of those things I need to actually not go that hard on. Like, literally, I'm walking outside. Literally, I'm walking outside right now. Yeah, I'm walking outside just in case. My battery might die faster, but at least I won't do this thing because it's below freezing right now. I have it on my table outside. I just have to watch on the battery here. Take care, Iron Fire Horse. I appreciate you coming by once again. And yeah, don't procrastinate anymore. So yeah, let's see how long I go for. I don't think I will go that much longer. We'll see. I'll give you guys at least a 2-minute warning. Because like I said, I don't think I want to go that much longer on this. Anyways. Yeah, it's one of those things. Maybe I should cut my losses while I still got that. Right, as much as I can. As much as I can here. Just squeeze the one outside. Cut my losses. What I have. See, I think maybe, yeah, I think I won't take that much longer. See, even take care of Idaho Garden Girl. Because clearly, I think I need this. And besides, I think people are sliding out anyways, right? I already know that I was at that 3.5 hour mark anyways, so. Just one of those things. Now that I think about it, right? You know, maybe I need a heat sink. I didn't, because the thing is, I never had issues before with it. At least not during, now when outside the summer, right? You know, I find, you know, I'm inside, I'm outside, it should be good. Well, maybe not as much as I think. So, yeah. I'll go for a little bit longer. I don't know, maybe another 5-10 minutes, give or take. I probably won't go that much longer because I don't think I actually should attempt this again. Once is good. Once is probably once too many times, yeah. Just because I know I do not want to attempt that anyways. And besides, technically I didn't eat yet. I didn't actually eat. I mean, I did eat something earlier in the day, but I haven't technically I haven't had lunch yet. Because I started the stream before lunchtime. So yes. Like I said, I don't think I'll go that much longer. I'll probably just sum up what I'm saying probably right now. Just because, yeah. But, yeah. I just wanted to come onto the stream, say my piece about and say things about this. Alright? It was never supposed to be a rant. Right? It's to kind of motivate you guys to kind of try to reuse things, if anything at all. Try to reuse things, try to recover things, right? The gardening aspects of things like that, the preparedness part of it, right? Do it for that reason, if anything, right? Even if you're not into that, or believe, or that kind of stuff, right? Do it for our reasons then, all right? You know, solar, you know, not because of that. Do it because you want to be, like, more independent from the grid. For example. Oh, yeah. Well, my battery's actually at 16%, so I don't think I'll... Probably a couple more minutes. So I'm not going to be eating that much longer. I'm not going to tempt fate anymore on it. I'm not going to tempt fate on. And besides, I probably should actually... and yeah, I need to charge my device too. I clearly need to double check this more. But I'm glad everyone took some time to drop by on this. Where I was talking about the 5 R's, which I've already mentioned. I never mentioned them in order. I just said all randomly in different ways to bring it up, right? And like I said, what is the way forward for our home? Alright? Because in my opinion, the resources are important. And yes, it was supposed to piggyback and is piggybacking on my P.R.E.P stream from the previous one, which was last night at this time. So everyone, as I close out on the stream here, like I said, I appreciate everyone dropping by on this stream and you know, sharing a few things, right? I shared a few things to myself, right? You guys shared a few things on your own, which I appreciate. Because I get to know you guys a little bit better. A little bit more. And you guys get to know me a little bit better. I shared a few
random stories every so often, right? No names, but just random stories of me and what I've seen, and some antidotes. Yeah, short stories and stuff like that. So everyone, and yes, by the way, everyone, I will show this at the end here. Bring my camera right up. Yeah. Just saying. Just saying. Just saying. I know I ended the Irish live stream like that too, but that's the real world, right? And yes, I'm trying to reuse that resource too. By the way, I am trying to reuse that resource too, as much as possible. So yes, I've already been back for like 10 minutes on this after my slight mishap. Oh, and I forgot my screen. I tilted my screen because I don't have it locked for orientation. So everyone, I appreciate everyone that dropped by, right? Everyone that dropped by. If you're catching this on the replay, wow, and you're hearing me still, I appreciate you hearing this part of the stream because it's like at the end. So like always, everyone, go out there and do something awesome out there because our world is changing out there. And we need to do something about it too. And try to adapt. Try to do something about it, right? Skills and knowledge get better when you practice them. And you gain more experience. Right? Try to reuse stuff as much as you can, right? For what it is, right? For what it is, right? Get more out of it. Don't waste food whenever possible, right? Reuse things like a piece of cardboard or whatever, like I've said earlier, right? Learn more about this stuff, learn how this stuff works, where the resources are going, all right? Not just the end of life, but how it's manufactured, how it's produced, right? And understand what goes into said thing, like a pair of jeans, right? The water that goes into a pair of jeans, for example, right? And afterwards, maybe you reuse it to make rags and make charcoal off out of said jeans later on, all right? For example. And try to help someone if you can, all right? I know you can't help everyone out there, but try to do what you can out there. And until the next live stream, for me, whenever that is, or video, take care. And have a good day, everyone. See you later.